Chapter 1404 Don't be silly. Don't. He held him back and pulled him to the side. There is no guarantee you can win against him. We don't know his level of strength and just how many abilities of mine he possesses. I also have a feeling that this is just a diversion, Gustav pointed out. Gustav felt like the clone's first statement, "You were looking for me," was directed at him, and not anyone else, unlike how everyone would think he was referring to being wanted. If Scientist Zill did things right, the clone would have a lot of things in his arsenal that Gustav wasn't sure he would not be able to guard against, so he knew it would be a bad idea to let him go. "So what do you suggest we do?" Inquired with an unsettled expression. Instead of responding, Gustav reached out and planted his index finger on E's forehead and activated mental manipulation. Transferring memories. A bunch of memories flowed into E's mind, and he instantly understood what the plan was. Without wasting any more time, Gustav stepped into the vortex that E just conjured and vanished. E peered southeast with a look of determination before conjuring another vortex. He stepped into it, and instantly vanished as well. Meanwhile, the breaking news was still circulating all across the planet, with the other Gustav wreaking havoc across Arabia City. Arabia City had undergone a state of chaos and near complete annihilation over a year ago, so one could understand how he felt seeing a similar scenario play out once more. However, he had to trust that Gustav would take care of it. The live footage of the ongoing collateral wreckage and destruction also displayed MBO officers arriving on the scene. The battle between the other Gustav and the deployment of MBO officers became intense in just a few seconds. The other Gustav didn't seem to be lacking as he engaged and dealt powerful blows using atomic blades as well as many other abilities that belonged to the original Gustav. The MBO officers had difficulty keeping up as many of them got blasted away and left with grievous injuries. Despite being accosted by several MBO officials, the cloned Gustav didn't stop wreaking havoc on the surroundings while dealing with them all at the same time. A group of 3 MBO officers unleashed a joint attack of telekinesis to trap the cloned Gustav in place so other officers could finally hit him with their destructive abilities. However, he suddenly transformed into a massive muscular beast with brownish-red skin and dark wings sprouting out of his back. With a single swift motion, he ripped through the constraints of the telekinesis and clawed forward intensely. A slash sent forth destructive dark lines that ripped through the officers easily and continued till another skyscraper far behind got cleaved into 4 different parts, crumbling onto the sides. The MBO officers who unleashed a joint telekinetic attack had their body parts raining from the air with blood. "Are you going to keep hiding, or are you going to face me?" the cloned Gustav yelled after decimating another bunch of them. He had mercilessly dealt with almost all the officers who arrived on the scene, showing that he wasn't bothered slaughtering them like their lives were worth nothing. A figure suddenly flickered into existence a few feet from the cloned Gustav in midair. The moment that happened, the destruction in the vicinity came to a stop as the cloned Gustav stared at the being before him with slight wariness and reverence. "You finally showed yourself," the cloned Gustav stated. The live footage display had everyone guessing about the identity of the person who had just arrived on scene. "Is it an MBO officer? What is going on? Who is that person? Why are they wearing a mask?" Several questions continued to permeate the despair-filled air in Arabia City, especially because the being who had just arrived was clad in a strange dark outfit and seemed to be wearing a fox-like mask. What was the point of all this?" the newly arrived figure questioned with a hint of bafflement. You were the point," the cloned Gustav responded. "I was trying to keep my presence hidden. Why did you have to disturb that?" The masked figure kept speaking. "You are the original, so you tell me." The cloned Gustav smirked, displaying a mischievous expression. He won't find him now, will he?" Gustav questioned with a tone of realization. "No, he won't," the cloned Gustav responded. "Only I know where he is, but then you could as well, which was why I made sure to drag you here. I knew you wouldn't let come face me. He is our friend," he added. "Point of correction, he is my friend. You are just a mistake." A mistake I made by trusting a greedy scientist. The masked figure, who happened to be the real Gustav, turned around after speaking. What if I killed you, and took your place? Then I'd have your life to myself. The clone Gustav spoke with a tone of intrigue. You'd regret it. It's not such a great life. The real Gustav replied with a melancholic tone. That is for me to decide. The cloned Gustav stated while his energy began to climb intensely. You were better off hiding in the shadows. Why did you have to come out? Gustav's eyes through the mask bore a look of pity. Do you know what it feels like living like that? The cloned Gustav's eyes suddenly bore a look of hatred as he glared at Gustav. As much as I would have liked to ask you, I am pressed for time. Since you won't tell me where Zil is, I will end this as soon as possible and find him. Gustav slowly raised his right hand. Ha ha ha! I knew you wouldn't be able to leave here until you found a way to save this meaningless city. I was right. The cloned Gustav yelled before charging forward. Fui! His figure blurred and he reappeared before the real Gustav with a powerful uppercut headed for his chin. Don't be silly, Gustav quietly voiced in ridicule before retracting his right arm and swinging it sideways. Pa! A heavy slap rang out as the back of Gustav's palm slammed into the cheek of the clone, sending him flying into the distance with ripples of destruction sweeping across the air from the collision. Just because you defeated the MBO officers doesn't mean you stand a chance against me. Gustav spoke with such casualness that would cause anyone to be terrified. Bang! 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 The cloned Gustav blasted through multiple buildings as his body kept getting catapulted into the distance from the slap. His whole face was soon smeared in blood as he gritted his teeth and swirled his body to take advantage of the momentum. Stamping his feet onto a mass that appeared in his line of sight, he catapulted his body forward with intensity while conjuring a massive atomic blade. Thwai! Gustav, who was still floating in midair, spotted a red and white streak in the distance which soon appeared before him in the form of the clone who had combined beast transformation with atomic disintegration. Slash! The clone swung at Gustav thinking it had taken him by surprise due to its intense speed, only for the atomic blade to cleave through the wind, leaving a crescent-shaped milky line to sweep forward with intensity. Where are you looking? Gustav's voice rang out from behind him. However, before he could turn around, another powerful blow rammed into his back, sending him hurling downwards. Bang! Boom! His figure slammed into the ground and ricocheted across it, causing spiderwebs-like cracks to appear on the roads. Gustav's figure vanished and reappeared before the clone's figure, which was still getting pushed backwards by the force of the punch. Pa! Another slap rang out again as the clone got sent catapulting towards the west. Pa! Pa! Bang! Bang! The clone was unable to follow Gustav's series of attacks as he moved like he was teleporting. 1 second he was on the left, and the next he was on the right, or behind him, or before him. It was almost like he was everywhere at the same time, and the clone wasn't the only one with this thought. As the world watched who they thought was the real Gustav get beaten up, they couldn't hide their astonishment. Just who is that man in the fox mask? For him to have the upper hand against an anomaly like Gustav Crimson, he has to be outranked, right? This is unbelievable. How is he winning when even the MBO officers couldn't do anything? The confusion continued as the cloned Gustav repeatedly received a pummeling until he was no longer able to counter in the slightest. Every attack he used, Gustav would counter with 10 times more power. The real Gustav made sure not to use an ability that might bring suspicion, and fortunately, the fight was over after a few minutes. Hand him over! A loud voice rang out from the side. Chapter 1405 I cannot let you take him. The real Gustav made sure not to use an ability that might bring suspicion, and fortunately, the fight was over after a few minutes. Since he primarily used physical prowess to overwhelm his clone, the spectators around the globe were unable to tell what his actual abilities were, and as such they couldn't identify who he was. Fly-high Gustav descended from the air into the midst of the destruction and desecration on the surface. The air hung heavy with dust and the acrid scent of smoke, remnants of the devastation that had befallen the urban landscape. Some skyscrapers had crumbled to the ground, with shattered windows and twisted metal poking out from multiple areas of the landscape. The streets, once bustling with the vibrant energy of city life, were now navigable only through a labyrinth of debris, remnants of vehicles littered across the place. Residential and commercial structures lay collapsed or partially demolished, their interiors exposed like open wounds. The once intact roads now bore the scars of explosive impacts. The scenery reminded Gustav of his fight with the Jenxidus. It had taken a lot for the city to recover after its near destruction the last time, and now, its scars had been reopened. "This is on me," Gustav said internally. He felt it would never have happened had he been more careful. All the more reason to never trust anyone. They could go behind your back at any given opportunity. He could only imagine how he would feel after watching everything. "Hand him over!" A loud voice rang out from the side. Without turning around, Gustav already knew what was going on. He stared at the unconscious clone in his grasp the moment he heard that. "I can't let anyone have him," he said internally, knowing that his clone possessed a lot of his cells. He would practically be handing himself over if he agreed to give them the clone. "I cannot do that," Gustav voiced while turning around to face the newly arrived MBO officers. "Listen here, I don't know who you are, but you did well stopping that maniac, but now you have to leave the rest to the actual authorities," one of the officers voiced. Gustav could sense that the MBO officer was more powerful than the others who had arrived. There was no doubt that he was more high-ranking too. "I cannot do that," Gustav stated once more. "This one comes with me." The newly arrived officer squinted his eyes. "Who even are you? Why do you hide your face behind that mask?" he inquired. How ironic to ask a masked man about his identity. "If I wanted it revealed, I wouldn't have picked up a mask. Just view me as a person cleaning up a mess," Gustav replied while levitating. Fweishish, his figure ascended into the sky in the next instant with incredible speed, drifting out of view in less than a second. "Don't let him get away!" the officer yelled as everyone swiftly moved and jumped into the vehicles parked around the corner. "Lock onto him quickly!" the leading officer yelled with a tone of urgency the moment they arrived at the floating vehicles. An operator could be spotted frantically tapping on buttons on the panel before them. The hovercraft lifted into the air and began to fly while loud beeping sounds rang out as the vehicle tried to lock onto Gustav. Despite its many attempts as multiple hovercraft drifted across the air, it was unable to pinpoint Gustav's location. After some time, the operator began to feel like they were just chasing the wind. The systems were unable to lock onto Gustav's figure even after he made use of the MBO's satellites to try to trace his movement. Unfortunately, Gustav was too quick for them. "He is gone," the operator informed. "He cannot be gone! Use all the satellites we have!" the MBO officers yelled in indignation. "I have. I checked everything that I could, but his speed pattern is just too unpredictable, and he already orbited around the Earth 26 times to throw us off." "And it worked," the MBO operator explained. "What the hell? Just how fast is he?" The MBO officer was even more in awe. "General Chell, Jack must have told you. I am here based on instructions to guard the research center. Anything else is outside of my jurisdiction." A handsome figure with yellow hair voiced while floating above a terrain of ice. This is a planet-wide situation. No. A universal-wide situation. Get Gustav Crimson from that unknown assailant, right now." A loud masculine voice could be heard from the other end. "Nah," Mac responded with an unbothered look. Do you know this could be considered treason? I am performing my duties. Now piss off," Mac stated before ending the transmission. There was no doubt that General Chell had more to say, but Mac just didn't care. Mac was a lot different from Jack. Jack tended to follow the higher-ups' every instruction in the MBO, mostly without questioning them since he was a very patriotic person by nature. So long as it was a mission that benefited or kept the Earth safe, he would swing into action. As for his counterpart Mac, he was more rebellious. If Mac had been in control when Jack was asked to subdue Miss Amy in the past, the fight would never have happened because he was fond of her. He envied how she could do whatever she pleased, whereas he was more obedient because of Jack, his patriotic counterpart. Mac floated in place silently for some time till a vibration rang out. Sigh. Why won't these geezers just leave me alone? Mac lamented as a holographic call appeared in his line of sight. Transmission from Grand Commander Cheyenne. What is it again, geezer? Mac questioned with a tone of annoyance after picking up. Grand Commander Cheyenne appeared in view and began speaking. Did you? If this is about the kid getting snatched out of y'all hands, I don't care. Mac interrupted before Grand Commander Cheyenne could complete his sentence. It is, Grand Commander Cheyenne admitted. Your help is needed to retrieve the Universal Fugitive. Are you going to ignore a potential threat to the peace of Earth and the Alliance as a whole? He proceeded to ask. Why would I help a bunch of losers that needed the help of an outsider to subdue the kid? Last I checked, they were not able to contend with him in the slightest, so whose fault is it that Gustav Crimson was unable to be retrieved? Mac questioned. So you watched the fight? Grand Commander Cheyenne was a bit surprised, but then he was the strongest mixed blood in existence, so there was no reason why he wouldn't be able to perceive a battle ongoing over 10,000 miles away. That also means you know where the assailant currently is. Grand Commander Cheyenne pointed out. Who cares? Max said before bringing out a lollipop from a multiple triangular star-shaped glow. He proceeded to place it in between his lips with an uncaring expression. Macintosh. I don't like it when you call me that name. In the heart of an eerie forest, where shadows clung to twisted branches, a person dressed in disheveled clothing lay sprawled on the damp forest floor. Leaves and twigs clung to their attire, which hinted at the unknown struggle they may have gone through. Beside the unconscious figure was a person seated on a small piece of rock. He had a devil fox-like mask covering his face and was clad in a long black outfit. He glanced at the unconscious figure a few times while seemingly on a call with someone. Yeah, he is right here. Glad you're safe. He doesn't have all of my abilities, and as you must have seen during the broadcast, his power level is below beta rank. Maybe I should have just gone to face him myself and left the search of that scientist to you. He did mention that you wouldn't find him. This whole endeavor was a distraction, and it served its purpose. What will you do now? I have to. The figure in a demon fox-like mask, who was Gustav, suddenly paused as he sensed something. He swiftly ended the transmission and looked up. Damn it, I forgot about him. He cursed internally as a whooshing wind began to blow the trees in the vicinity sideways. As the trees along with their branches gave way, it revealed the illumination of the skies above along with a figure that seemed to be floating in place majestically. You know why I am here. The voice of a yellow-haired figure floating in the distance rang loudly. To reap a harvest from another man's plant? Gustav maintained a calm tone as he questioned. I know you did all the work, which is why I am sorry about this. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't do this, Max said while pointing at the body of the unconscious cloned Gustav. You'll discover the inception of this content at N0V at Lbin. I cannot let you take him, Gustav stated while grabbing the unconscious clone. Chapter 1406 Gustav vs. the World's Strongest do not unlock yet. I cannot let you take him, Gustav stated while grabbing the unconscious clone. However, in the next moment, a star-patterned construct appeared around the body, causing it to vanish. Sorry, but you can't stop me, Mac responded while the unconscious body appeared beside him in midair. Damn it! Gustav gritted his teeth before leaping into the air. Thwoosh! Heavy wind blasted in every direction as the ground of the forest cracked, and trees swayed to the side from the intensity of Gustav's speed. Mac, who had already turned away to leave, was taken by surprise as the figure in the fox-like mask, who he didn't know was the real Gustav, appeared beside him in just a split second. Gustav immediately reached out to grab the clone protected by the triangular star-shaped construct, and from the corner of his eye he caught the slight astonishment on Mac's face. However, Mac was much faster, as he pulled the floating unconscious clone away and thrust his right palm forward. Bang! Gustav was met with a violent clash as his entire body was sent flying across the air upon collision. Don't push me, Mac warned after attacking with no intent to inflict gracious injuries. He turned around and flew forward with the floating unconscious body beside him, but didn't get very far before a red streak blazed across the sky. Looks like I might need to knock him out, Mac decided while turning around swiftly. Gustav's figure appeared right before him with his arm outstretched once more. Space construct, Mac chimed before Gustav could make contact. Triangular star-shaped enclosures suddenly appeared around Gustav's figure, and he instantly found himself unable to move. Damn it! The space left Gustav completely incapacitated. There was only one way he knew he could get out of it, but he couldn't go through with it because he would be risking exposing his identity. Chaos construct, Mac voiced while pointing at the sky. A massive, glowing, purplish circle with multiple triangular shapes covered the sky and blotted the view of the entire sun. Gustav was frozen in place, but he could sense the incredible pressure from the sky. In the next instant, a powerful torrent of purplish energy rained from the sky like a waterfall. It charged downwards with immense speed and power, slamming into Gustav's frozen figure. Bang! It rained down upon the forest, which was as large as a town, racing everything in view to the ground. The fire was unable to breathe because, in just a second, the entire vicinity was turned into a charred wasteland. The trees were gone along with rocks, grasses, highlands, mountains, and almost every atom in view. All that remained in view was a massive, darkened surface with molten lava in some areas. Judging by your strength, that won't be enough to kill you, but at the very least you won't be a nuisance anymore, Max said before turning away once more and flying into the distance. Those geezers better not complain about the destruction, tch, he grumbled. Down beneath the pile of ash and molten liquid, a figure sprouted out of the surface with a sizzling cooked flesh. Reddish marks could be seen all over his burnt skin and hair, as he raised his face to stare at the sky. Powerful indeed, the figure voiced with a tone of aspiration. You've done it now, he added while his body began to visibly regenerate at very insane speed. Silver scales started appearing all over his body as the space around him twisted and violent winds stirred. Horns protruded from his head as energy gathered around him, and he ascended from the surface of the decimated environment. His figure suddenly vanished like he teleported, and in the next instant, a loud ripping sound rang out heavily. Grrrhhhhhhhh, the surroundings quaked with intensity as a massive line was torn in the skies. People across multiple cities in the world looked up to the sky and could see the line that cut across it. Their faces were fraught with clueless expressions, but the sound wave that came next made them cover their ears in horror. Thraha! It sounded like 1,000 thunderbolts merged into one, ringing before each person's ear. Some of them already had blood leaking from their eardrums. They didn't know that what was coming next would be even worse. A few seconds earlier. Huh! Mac turned in midair as he sensed something. Nature cons. Before he could complete his sentence, the skies ripped open with rifts appearing all over. BOM. It sounded like thousands of loud explosions went off as an incredibly quick streak rammed heavily into Mac. Both figures tore across the sky at such insane speed that more rifts appeared in their wake. Mac was completely astounded as he tried to free himself from the figure that clung to him with unprecedented grip. How are you still conscious? Mac voiced as he held onto Gustav's arms and began slowly spreading them. When he noticed he was losing hold, Gustav spun repeatedly and flung Mac away. Fly high! Mac found himself catapulting downwards at a speed that not a single mixed blood would be able to follow. Before he could try to stabilize himself, he slammed into the surface of an ocean, causing a massive torrent to blast upwards. Boom! It was as though another explosion had gone off as Mac hit the bottom of the ocean instantly. A cyclone was generated as a radius of more than 50,000 feet was cleared of water and walls of ocean waves spread to other areas. Mac broke through the ocean bed and continuously kept falling further underground from the force of the throw. The clone's unconscious body, which still had triangular-shaped star constructs around it, was flying toward the ocean when Gustav grabbed it forcefully. Gotta put this in my personal space, he voiced with a struggling tone as he tightened his hand around the construct in a bid to break through it, and retrieve the clone's body. Unfortunately, the construct seemed unbreakable despite the amount of pressure Gustav inflicted on it. I have no choice but to use it. Gustav could only pray that it didn't get noticed as a stack of multicolored rhombuses phased out of his left palm area. Try. Just the construct, Gustav instructed. In the next instant, the construct was consumed by Kohelia, leaving Gustav's unconscious clone untouched. Gustav reached out to grab the clone before it could fall, but before he made contact with it, a yellow streak came out of nowhere and snatched the clone from him. Damn it! I wasn't fast enough, Gustav gritted his teeth. Mac had the clone in his grasp as he appeared hundreds of feet away from Gustav. You! I cannot ignore your level of strength even though it is beneath mine. Someone as powerful as you are will not be able to go unnoticed since there are not a lot of mixed bloods on this level of strength. Who are you? Mac questioned with a perceptible tone of interest. Although Gustav's demon fox-like mask had been disintegrated when Mac attacked earlier, one still couldn't tell how he looked at the moment. This was because Gustav activated Ultimate Combination, which had completely altered his human look. I am nobody, Gustav answered with the same fake middle-aged voice he had been using all this time. Who knows? I might just leave the kid to you if you revealed who you are. Mac grinned lightly while proposing. No, you wouldn't, Gustav said internally, and he was right. Who in their right senses would let go of the original and a clone at the same time? I will no longer take your axe lightly if you keep this up. Knowing he couldn't get Gustav to spill the beans, Mac warned heavily. Just give him back and I will be out of your way. Gustav remained unyielding as well. I can't do that, Mac stated. Spack! Before he could completely cast any ability, Gustav moved like a lightning bolt. Thraz! He arrived before Mac in an instant while throwing out a glowing icy fist. This will be very damaging if I don't evade or counter. Mac was a bit faster, but he knew he only had two choices at this moment, since complete evasion, while holding on to the clone, was impossible. Fwye! He let go of the clone and raised his right arm to block Gustav's attack while arching his left arm backward to thrust a counterpalm strike at Gustav's gut. Boom! A loud crash that reverberated across the entirety of the earth rang out as Gustav's fists collided with Mac's arm. Mac's face barely displayed an affected look as his palm rammed into Gustav's knee at the same moment. Gustav had raised his knee to block the palm strike, and now they had both hit each other with enough force to split the earth in two. BOM! The entirety of the earth quaked intensely as they were both sent catapulting backward. He tricked me. That attack was much more powerful than I sensed. Chapter 1407 Absolute Death. He tricked me. That attack was much more powerful than I sensed. Mac forcefully swallowed the blood threatening to shoot out of his mouth as he flew uncontrollably into the distance. Gustav wasn't any better as his left leg could be seen missing from the knee downwards. His figure left a trail of blood across the air as the force from their collision sent him spiraling backward much harder than Mac. Bruh! Gustav vomited out a mouthful of blood as the attack had truly rocked him to his core. Now he understood what it was like to go against the strongest mixed blood of their age. The clone. Gustav struggled to breathe as his perception picked on the falling body in the distance. The clash had driven them thousands upon thousands of feet away from each another, and it had also left the body of the clone falling from the air. Mac had regained control of his drifting body before Gustav could. The moment he came to a stop, he peered forward in the direction of the falling body. Whoosh! His figure drove forward at a much faster speed than Gustav's, crossing a distance of more than 10,000 feet in milliseconds. Pa! Gustav slapped his face in midair to jolt his body back to a functional state as he sensed that Mac was about to grab the body. Twice space contrasted, turning into a tunnel that led straight to the unconscious clone the moment Gustav charged forward. He arrived before Mac and threw an uppercut at his face. Mac once more had to let go of the clone to defend himself, causing both of them to clash thousands of times in just a few milliseconds. Bang! 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 They both repeatedly threw out extremely quick strikes with even more caution and precision than before, causing waves upon waves of energy to disperse in every direction. The ocean beneath them had been disturbed to the point where its waves had moved to another location entirely. Beneath them, the ocean waves that were displaced still hadn't returned, giving them a view of the ocean floor. Shores were being flooded due to their battle, and the weather conditions in the sky had undergone a complete change. Even though Gustav managed to block a lot of Mac's attacks, he was still receiving grievous injuries. Mac was more cautious than before, so he had hardly taken damage from Gustav's attack, but he knew they couldn't keep it up. From the corner of their eyes, they saw that the body was about to collide with the ocean floor. Fyi! The moment they both realized this, Gustav and Mac dashed downwards with incredible speed. Gustav reached out to grab the clone's unconscious body before it could strike the ground when Mac threw out a purplish blast that sent him flying into the distance. Bang! Mac caught the clone just inches away from hitting the surface, but before he could even relish the feeling of relief, a red bolt tore through the air and slammed into his chest. He subconsciously let go of the clone's body, as a bloody hole appeared in the middle of his chest from the attack while his figure got blasted backward. Gustav reached the clone, which was now resting on a rock protruding from the ocean bed, and swiftly drew a rectangular line in midair with his index finger. A glowing doorway appeared in view, and Gustav swiftly threw the clone into it. However, before he could close the doorway to the space he created, Mac's figure rammed into him from the side. He was sent flying as loud cracking sounds rang out while Gustav spat out blood profusely. I've never been beaten to this point before while ultimate combination is activated. He isn't the strongest for nothing, Gustav grumbled internally as he felt his organs shifting out of place from Mac's continuous hits. He couldn't help but curse at the fact that the dimensional bracelet was currently out of power. He would have gotten out of here with the body a long time ago if it wasn't the case. As Mac reached out to grab the clone's unconscious body within Gustav's conjured space, an orb suddenly appeared beside him. The moment he turned to the side in surprise, a burst of reddish and purplish energy swept out from the orb. Boom! Mac was sent flying with intensity, as the immensely destructive energy raged forth like a force of death. Gustav willed the space to close at the moment of the blast so as not to end up incinerating the clone by mistake. However, the torrent of destructive energy had swept him away as well and was currently consuming the ocean. Contain! Gustav yelled while slapping his palms together and gritting his teeth forcefully. The energy sweeping forth suddenly stopped while sweat began to dribble down Gustav's face. He had only let the energy rage for half a second, and yet the entire ocean was nearly dried out. A look of regret could be seen on his face as the energy began to rescind. His body got charred due to this, but he had enough power to retract the attack. The torrent of energy continued to withdraw until it got contained in an orb like before, except that this one happened to give off a weaker energy compared to the previous one. If Gustav had let the energy fully sweep out, the entire Earth would have been consumed. No one would know that he was responsible for it, but he would have really become a real planet destroyer had such happened. Mac's upper body had a few scalds and most of his clothes had been chalked away, but he still seemed very much vibrant. This was an attack that would usually disintegrate everything in sight, and yet it only managed to send Mac some distance away with barely any injuries. He picked himself up and observed the destruction around him. It was like being at the edge of the world where endless waves once danced. What lay before him now was a desolate expanse bearing the scars of a cataclysmic event. The once majestic ocean had been brought to the brink of desiccation, its waters reduced abysmally. The seabed, now exposed and cracked, told a silent tale of devastation. The ocean's floor, once hidden beneath a vibrant mosaic of marine life, lay barren and desolate. Aquatic mixed breeds that once darted through the vast blue ocean had vanished, leaving behind a haunting emptiness. He is an alpha-rank mixed blood capable of such, and yet I have never met him before this. Mac knew that alpha-rank mixed bloods were capable of bringing the Earth to a state of devastation. However, it was a different case when they were not only capable of that, but could also exchange more than a couple of blows with him. The last person he recalled was able to do this was Miss Amy, and there had not been anyone else since. This made him even more interested in the identity of the person he was battling against, but there was only one choice left. It is dangerous to keep this up for the sake of the Earth. I must eradicate him in one fell swoop and retrieve the kid, Mac decided while levitating. Gustav had successfully managed to put the clone away in the space he conjured, but he couldn't come up with ways to escape Mac at the moment. He had already expended a lot of energy due to constant regeneration. Just being around someone as powerful as Mac, who unleashed most of his energy, was causing him damage. There was no doubt that he was still far from reaching Mac's level, but he couldn't have asked for a better situation since Jack was said to be more powerful than Mac. It made sense since people mostly mentioned Jack whenever a discussion about the strongest mixed blood was brought up. Gustav couldn't imagine how much crazier it would have been if he had to face Jack. Ugh! Gustav suddenly paused as he felt something. Something inexplicable. He turned to the southwest as he sensed it, and spotted the darkening clouds up ahead. Mac had his finger pointed in Gustav's direction as triangular star-shaped patterns appeared in reddish form. As much as I would like to continue this, I can't. With the activation of absolute death, this fellow will meet his end. When his space ruptures, I will retrieve the boy, Mac decided internally while the darkening clouds increased. I'm going to die. I can feel it, Gustav said internally as the fear that he had never felt in ages gripped his heart. Don't let him complete that attack. You have the means to end the world's strongest mixed blood right now. The system suddenly chimed in. Stop. I know you don't want to do it, but it is his life or yours. The system added. Stop, let me think. Gustav yelled internally. You do not have time to think. The moment the system replied, a massive jaw of darkness appeared beneath the area where Gustav was situated. Kohilia! Gustav roared, causing rhombuses of multicolored lights to burst out from his being. Chapter 1408 Reappearance of the Otherworld. Being the moment the system replied, a massive jaw of darkness appeared beneath the area where Gustav was situated. Kohilia! Gustav roared, causing rhombuses of multicolored lights to burst out from his being. Master! A loud and domineering baritone voice rang out as Kohilia was being summoned in full power. The atmosphere became extremely tense because of the frightening aura the both of them were giving off. As the tension rose to its apex, Mac's face suddenly scrunched up with a disturbed expression. Gustav was about to devour everything within a particular radius when he sensed the energy from Mac's side thinning. Something is wrong, Gustav said internally. I think you're right. The system agreed. At that moment, Mac suddenly deactivated his attack and blasted off into the sky at unprecedented speed. Huh! Gustav paused in bafflement. What is going on? He wondered out loud. It made no sense for Mac to just suddenly leave since he wasn't losing the battle. Gustav only had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Anyone who had witnessed the battle would have known that Gustav was still a level beneath Mac, so why would he suddenly leave? Whatever happened is none of my concern since it helps. Time to leave. Gustav couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief as he turned and commanded Kohilia to retract. Aren't you at least curious about what came up that made the world's strongest halt the process of retrieving a universally known fugitive? The system questioned internally. Has to be something more important, probably life or planet-threatening. Gustav assumed and then suddenly paused. You know what it is, don't you? Gustav questioned with a tone of realization. Minutes earlier, at the IC Research Center, Grand Commander Cheyenne stood before the underground space where the Death Angel was being kept. He was glad that at the very least he was there to watch after the research center, or Mac would never have agreed to leave in pursuit of Gustav. It had taken a lot of convincing, but since Mac had felt the Grand Commander was capable enough, he decided that it wouldn't hurt to leave the protection of the research center to him for 20 seconds. 20 seconds was the amount of time he had assumed it would take him to get Gustav's clone, who he thought was the original, and return to the research center. His calculation was done on account of the resistance of the party who was holding on to the clone, the real Gustav. No one would have expected that the mixed blood assumed to be at the alpha rank would give Mac so much trouble. Behind Grand Commander Cheyenne was a group of scientists working on a dark cube-like box that kept generating yellow sparks of electricity. Almost fully calibrated. Dr. Markle, who was the leading scientist there, gave occasional feedback to Grand Commander Cheyenne. Holographic imagery gave them visuals of a percentage currently at 99. 30% slowly moving upwards. It is still far from what I requested of you, Grand Commander Cheyenne voiced while turning away from the Death Angel, who was completely trapped in the space ahead. One step at a time. If we can first bring it to a point where mixed bloods will be able to exist in the other dimension without weakening, it will be a great achievement that will take us a level further to the goal we're aiming at, Dr. Markle stated with a tone of assurance. As the values before the percentage increased, so did the anticipation within the room. Almost there, Dr. Markle stated as the dark cube throbbed violently, and the yellow sparks swimming around it increased. Less than 99. 80%. Almost there. Steady her. He instructed the other scientists, who tapped on multiple holographic buttons to control the tubes attached to the cube. Less than 99. 90%. Squinting eyes face 99. 99%. At the moment, it was like time had come to a pause as the scientists and Dr. Markle watched the holographic display with keen eyes. All of a sudden, cracks began to appear on the surface. KRYYCHH, there was no glass or structure affected in the vicinity by the unexpected and inexplicable phenomenon, and yet it seemed like the air itself had cracks on them, almost like reality was being shattered before their very eyes. Grand Commander Cheyenne, who had noticed it before anyone else, moved with speed and precision, grabbing Dr. Markle by the collar before the phenomenon could completely unfold into an unexpected disaster. "Watch out!" His voice rang out loudly as he instantly jumped backward with Dr. Markle in his grasp. The moment their bodies arrived at the end of the space, a soft, but deadly slash shimmering with both light and darkness sliced through the air. Every single scientist besides Dr. Markle had their bodies cleaved in two in an instant. Blood gushed out and spread across the place as the dark cube wasn't spared as well. The slash had divided it into two halves, causing the experiment to immediately come to a halt. What a waste! The instant Grand Commander Cheyenne spotted the arm protruding from the middle of the crack that had spread across the air like spiderwebs, he recognized it. It's that thing from before. Grand Commander Cheyenne didn't need to be told before he knew that everyone within the facility was in danger, so he instant activated the warning alarms. Go! He yelled at Dr. Markle while the being responsible for the attack slowly pushed the rest of its body out of the cracks. But Dr. Markle was about to mention the Death Angel in bondage when Grand Commander Cheyenne cut him off. Go now! He yelled while gracefully swinging his arms sideways. Bang! A hole was instantly blasted through the walls behind, which connected to an icy tunnelway. Dr. Markle had no choice but to swallow his complaints and flee the vicinity. Grand Commander Cheyenne, recalling how things went the last time, had to admit that he dug a hole for himself by asking Mac to go after Gustav. It had been over 3 months since the being's last appearance. He didn't win against it then, and he was certain that he would be able to contend with its strength now. Understanding the situation, Grand Commander Cheyenne charged forward with speed. Shi-I! He sped past the cracking area and blasted straight through the reinforced glass that housed the captive Death Angel. Let's see if you will be able to take it with you after I keep it inside of me again. The diamond-like shard embedded in the Grand Commander's forehead gleamed brightly as he arrived before the Death Angel. The Death Angel instantly turned illusionary and began to shrink while drifting towards the position of the shard embedded in Grand Commander Cheyenne's forehead. Voirituval. The Death Angel, who seemed to be conscious at the time, spat out a bunch of incoherent words, or so they seemed. To an ordinary person, those words, if they could even be called words, were incoherent, but to Grand Commander Cheyenne, he knew they held meaning. The problem was that there was no way to decipher the meaning at that instant because of the perilous situation he was in. Grand Commander Cheyenne's face turned even more serious as he sped up the rate of absorption. All of a sudden, the air shimmered and vibrated with incredible intensity, and Grand Commander Cheyenne spat out a mouthful of blood. Grr! He fell to his knees weakly as his vision grew heavy with every passing millisecond. Behind him was a massive gash that had cut so deep that one could see Grand Commander Cheyenne's internal organs from the back. Blood tried to seep out but was disintegrated by the dark corrosive light surrounding the edges of the gash. Grand Commander Cheyenne couldn't recall the last time anyone had managed to bring his body to that state. It had never happened before, and to make matters worse, he didn't even sense the attack until it hit. It meant the attack must have transcended his perceptive speed and hit like it had been teleported. Step, 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 he could faintly hear the sound of footsteps behind him announcing that his end was nigh. He tried to summon strength and planted his palm on the floor for support when a sharp line suddenly appeared on his elbow region. Cruck, half of Grand Commander Cheyenne's right arm was instantly lopped off, causing him to fall over. Ugh! Blood seeped out intensely as the footsteps grew closer. The figure currently standing behind him had a feminine structure. She had a line that separated the two contrasting colors that her skin possessed. The half-white of her face twisted a little as the darkness in the eye position on that half seemed to spread a little. The blade in her right hand gleamed dangerously as she raised it ever so slightly. The entire facility trembled in the wake of the energy that surrounded her figure, causing Grand Commander Cheyenne to struggle even harder with breathing. Add my new WSA entry to your L. Chapter 1409 Unsettling Casualties. The strength of this thing, it's higher than the last time. Grand Commander Cheyenne could barely collect his thoughts at the moment. Despite the incredible power of the being upon its first appearance, it was still known to be weaker than the world's strongest mixed blood, Jack, in terms of strength, but at the moment Grand Commander Cheyenne wasn't sure anymore. With the energy it generated, he felt like it could destroy the Earth 10 times over with ease if that was its objective. The Death Angel laughed repeatedly as it watched the scene play out with immense excitement. It continuously repeated the same words it had spoken to Grand Commander Cheyenne's face repeatedly. The feminine humanoid raised its blade and casually cut a line across the air, a line that could cut through any surface no matter how dense. There was no doubt that the casual attack would end Grand Commander Cheyenne, and since it was instantaneous, the old man knew that he was as good as dead. Twi-hi! A line that severed the entire underground icy structure from the bottom up to the surface, ripped forward with intensity, causing its collapse. The scientists who had managed to make it to the surface were being carted away in emergency vehicles when the immense energy radiating from the casual attack blasted everyone into the distance. They all felt the heat of the attack even though they weren't physically hit. Time had come to a stop as they watched the bodies of their colleagues disintegrate from the powerful shock waves. As the environment was plunged into utter chaos, a loud voice rang loudly across the vicinity. Space constructs! It was both soft and extremely loud at the same time. A rhythmic energy pulsated as stars with triangular patterns formed an enclosure around the figures of the scientists who were currently still in midair from the blast of energy. The moment the constructs were formed, the scientists were safe from the destructive energy that thrashed around. Not a single one of them had noticed when Mac arrived. The speed at which he had activated his bloodline ability to protect them had been incredibly quick. Swai-wai loud whooshing sounds rang out as the 27 in midair vanished briefly before threads of sizzling dark light blasted forth from below. Boom! Everything within a radius of 700 miles instantly disintegrated, leaving a massive charred hole on the surface of the Earth. The sudden discharge had consumed everything in sight, Mac included. It seemed like nothing would be able to survive within it. However, 30 seconds later, Mac remained in midair without any new injuries. The only injuries on his body were the few scalds and bruises he received from fighting Gustav, but it was barely noticeable. Mac had successfully gotten everyone out of range except for Grand Commander Cheyenne, who was still underground when this happened. Unfortunately, there was nothing left. The research center along with the ice land that spanned for a couple of 100 miles was completely gone. It solidified the status quo. Grand Commander Cheyenne was gone. The only visible outline in the vicinity was an all-black creature with wings and horns who looked no different from the depiction of demons from children's fairy tale, alongside a feminine white and black figure with a single inverted horn protruding out of her forehead. The Death Angel has been freed, and that creature beside it. That must be the creature I returned to Earth for. Mac's face retained a calm expression as he analyzed the situation. He now understood why they had him return. No one on Earth would have been able to handle such a creature. Mac, let's switch. You can have some of my time later. Usually, I would say no, but the situation does seem troublesome. You can take over, Mac responded while letting out a small sigh. While the conversation was ongoing in Mac's head, the Death Angel below had pointed in Mac's direction. It seemed like the Death Angel was complaining about his existence and possibly asking the feminine-looking being beside it why Mac was still alive. The attack was immensely powerful after all and comparable to Gustav's planet-decimating orbs. They didn't seem to be aware that this was the strongest mixed blood in existence. The half-dark and white feminine being reacted by raising the blade in her grasp to Mac, who was still floating in midair. Her blade emitted such powerful energy that caused the air around them to begin cracking like glass. It spread forth from her being as she drew a line across the air again. It seemed like the world was going to split in two at that moment as the line surged forth with unparalleled intensity. At that moment, the scenery around them suddenly changed. The Death Angel and half-dark and white being were left baffled upon realizing that they were now in an environment that possessed no physical matter. They found themselves suspended in a surreal ballet of existence. The surroundings defied the very fabric of reality, a place where the concepts of land and water dissolved into the intangible embrace of air and vapor. The air around them bore a translucence that hinted at the intangible nature of their surroundings. There was no up or down, either was there any discernible orientation in the mesmerizing expanse. Whispers of unseen forces resonated through the air, a haunting symphony that transcended audible sound. Space itself seemed to fold and contort, creating optical illusions that challenged the very nature of perception. They tried to pinpoint Mac's location in that realm, but it brought them even more confusion to see a different humanoid being floating ahead of them in that space. He looked to be around his 20s with jet black hair and a charismatic-looking expression on his face. He gave off an overbearing aura that caused the realm to pulse as if in reverence to his dignified presence. I transferred us here because if we were to fight on Earth, the world would come to an end. The voice of the entity rippled across the space like a newly arrived deity. The Death Angel's hollow gray eyes widened in realization. It looked like a different person, but it was the being that had manifested from the one that remained after the attack on the research center. It was Jack. They were here just now. Where did they go? Gustav wondered with a conflicted look as he arrived above a space huddled with destruction. Kaya! Kiriko! Ra! Father! Mother! Sniff, sniff! Why, my legs! Kaya! My legs are gone! As Gustav's perception traveled across the globe, he could hear the cries of many innocents. The destruction that had ensued from his fight with Jack was one thing, but the energy that erupted from the attack of the half-dark and white being had wreaked more havoc than they realized. Perhaps that was the reason Jack immediately transferred the fight to a different location, but Gustav was unaware that this was the case. All he knew at the moment was the fact that both his battle with Jack and the attack from the half-dark and white being had brought about a casualty of millions. Gustav couldn't help but feel guilty as his perception continuously picked up on more destruction across the globe. Millions were confirmed to have perished already, but even more were left with grievous injuries. Alarms were going off all across the world as health practitioners moved to work despite having suffered casualties themselves. The injured who were getting treatment at the moment weren't healing. It turned out that the attack from the half-dark and white being brought irrevocable damage that could not be reversed by even the best healing meds. Gustav was feeling a bit guilty as he picked up on everything going on at the moment. Earth was on fire. Grand Commander Cheyenne was here. I can't sense him anywhere on the entire Earth. Gustav knew what that meant. Grand Commander Cheyenne was someone he had always respected. Not to mention the fact that he informed Gustav of the Grand Commander standing up for him several times during his absence from Earth. Grrrttze appeared in holographic format with a deadbeat look on his face. Plankton City was affected too. Angie's brother is. After the call ended, Gustav's remained in place silently for a few seconds as E.'s report echoed in his mind, mixing with the cries of earthlings. Sigh. How unlucky can one person be? I just arrived on this planet yesterday and everything has gone to shit. Gustav lamented with a soft, but slightly frustrated expression. I can't let things be. A glowing hourglass appeared in Gustav's grasp. What did I tell you about constantly using that? The system instantly nagged. I will be fine, Gustav voiced while imbuing the ancient hourglass with his essence. The item emitted an even brighter glow as its golden sands pulsated with mythical energy. You don't ever listen until something seriously bad happens, the system stated with a dissatisfied tone. There is no other way. It is for the best that this battle never happens, Gustav voiced while turning the hourglass upside down. Chapter 14:10 I warned you. There is no other way. It is for the best that this battle never happens, Gustav voiced while turning the hourglass upside down. A golden energy thronged, spreading across the fabric of existence in an instant. Planets and galaxies were once more covered by the spread of the golden glow, unaware that this wasn't the first time such a scenario was taking place. As the sands began to pour, time reversed on a universal scale. Within the realm that Jack pulled the Death Angel and the white and dark powerful being, an incredibly destructive battle was ongoing. The battle wreaked chaotic waves of destruction that would long have destroyed the Earth had they remained there to face off. It would have caused great peril even across the galaxy. Jack was facing off against the half-contrasting color alongside the Death Angel, who had gotten weaker than both of them after being dragged into Jack's dimension. Jack was holding his own against both of them, and had even managed to inflict injuries on them. However, he wasn't without damage himself. He couldn't help but wonder why the half-white and dark being wasn't affected by the same weakening laws that put the Death Angel in its current state. As their battle raged on, a mythical golden energy suddenly invaded the realm. All three of them were instantly bathed in the golden waves and found their actions reversing. Someone is reversing time, Jack immediately realized and tried to free himself from the universal laws of time. Jack and the two other entities were beyond time, so they were supposed to be immune to time-related abilities even if the entire world was affected. Unfortunately, this time it wasn't so. Jack found himself shackled by the power of the force driving the time reversal, and was unable to free himself. The same applied to the Death Angel and half-dark and white being. They all seemed to be baffled by the power of time affecting them, and erasing their memories as all of existence reversed. Jack turned to the side and peered through the yellow wave of energy, only to spot a silhouette existing outside of the wave. He recognized this silhouette. You! A moment after he voiced with a tone of realization, his memories were erased as he turned illusionary. Minutes later, Gustav stood in midair with the hourglass in his grasp. His perception spread across the entire planet, and to his relief, the world wasn't on fire. Mac was still floating above the icy terrain that housed the secret research underground center. In Gustav's left hand was the unconscious corpse of his clone. It turned out that he had just finished beating him up and flown to an area above a large forest space. Gustav wasted no time and swiftly conjured up a bluish space to keep the clone. A moment after he did this, he let out a sigh of relief. What would I have told Angie if she had returned to meet her little brother dead? He said internally. Gustav turned to a direction in midair, and was just about to fly away when... Crook! Blood began gushing out of his nose. Huh! Gustav reached out to cover his nose in confusion. I warned you! The system voice chimed. What is? Gustav suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood before he could form a coherent sentence. Kirk! His vision faded very quickly, and he fell from the air. Why? Bang! His body crashed into a tree, causing it to split in two as he got wedged in between since it didn't separate all the way. Gustav completely passed out. A teenage girl with crimson hair and a gown phased out of him in the next instant. Such a fool! She uttered with a look of distaste. What will be the point of reversing time if you not only get yourself killed but also fail to prevent the same situation from playing out again? The system questioned with a tone of annoyance. Grrrhhhhhhh. A loud growl rang out with intensity, causing the surroundings to quake. A level 98 warthog. The system said with a wary tone after identifying the mixed breed that had let out the loud growl. She instantly became afraid. When Gustav had arrived there before reversing time, the beast had been docile. Despite being the lord of the territory, the beast didn't dare bother Gustav at that time because of the presence he gave off. Now that Gustav was unconscious, his presence had weakened significantly, which put him in danger. I don't have the power to fight a beast. You better not die. The system proceeded to grab Gustav's arm and began pulling him towards a nearby rock with a small cave within. She groaned multiple times because of Gustav's weight but managed to pull it off after a minute. The cave was dimly illuminated, making them barely visible within. The system put Gustav behind a small block and stared at the entry point with a look of wariness. She grabbed a bunch of leaves and broken branches to block the entrance, which wasn't very wide. Another loud growl rang out, and it sounded even closer than the last. Did it notice us already? The system wondered. Bam! She grew increasingly worried as loud collisions from limbs striking the ground began to cause the cave to vibrate. It was obvious that a large creature was strolling around nearby. Bam! With every strike, the tension in the air increased. Bam! Bam! The system squinted her eyes as she noticed some more leaves shudder outside of the cave's entrance like something was passing by. Looks like it knows we are here, she uttered internally as the leaves and branches she placed at the entrance brushed to the side. Why? In the next moment, a being appeared at the entry point. The growls and loud collisions instantly came to a stop. Oh, it's you, the system stated with a slight tone of relief. Do I know you, youngling? A human voice rang out. Youngling? Even the strongest is quite ignorant. The system maintained a look of pride as the person before them, who happened to be Mac, stepped forward. What does it matter? Anyways, if you're here for him, I'd advise you to head back. You need to be prepared for what is coming before it arrives, the system blurted out. What is a little girl doing out here and with that man? What happened to him? Mac questioned after realizing that Gustav was unconscious. You don't have time for this, the system voiced while a red holographic screen shot out of her eyes. Watch this, she said to Mac. Footage of destruction played out, causing Mac's eyes to constrict in confusion. What is this? He questioned with a grave tone. It is what will happen, unless you listen to my instructions and choose not to repeat the same mistake, the system answered like an all-knowing being. What do you mean? Mac inquired with a concerned look. 2 days later, Gustav's eyes flickered open and he found himself staring at the crystalline ceilings of a room. He instantly recognized this place to be E.'s crib. How did I? Gustav suddenly jumped to his feet as he held his face. He couldn't feel blood on his face, and even his clothes were a new pair. SSHHHHSHH. The room door slid to the side and he walked in alongside Hendrik. Welcome back to the land of the living, he voiced with a smile. Sigh. You overdid it this time, big brother, Hendrik stated while softly stroking his hair as they walked in. How long have I been out? Gustav questioned with a tone of urgency. 2 days, he answered candidly. 2 days? Gustav yelled and jumped to his feet. Relax. Hendrik immediately placed his hand on Gustav's chest and pushed him back to the bed. Gustav fell weakly with a puzzled look on his face. First off, I know, Hendrik said to Gustav. I still have the memory. He hinted at the time rewinding, causing Gustav to recall that he was a time candidate. I know too, he told me. He chimed in from the side. Then, what happened? Gustav questioned as he regained his calm look. The thing living in you managed to convince Mac to focus on preventing that being from freeing the Death Angel and wreaking havoc. Hendrik proceeded to narrate everything that had happened to Gustav. It turned out that after the system had successfully convinced Mac, he got everyone out of the facility before the arrival of the half-white and dark being. except for the Death Angel. According to what they knew, the half-white and dark being only appeared because of the Death Angel, so moving it would pretty much be the same as moving chaos to another location. Jack and Mac also stopped the experiments the scientists were conducting to make sure things would not repeat themselves. Chapter 14:11 Unexpected turn of events. Jack and Mac stopped the experiments the scientists were conducting just to make sure things would not repeat themselves. However, even after an hour had rolled by, the half-dark and white being did not appear. It didn't show up? Gustav was incredibly shocked at first. No, it has been 2 days and still the same. It never came back, Hendrik announced. When you say it never came back, does that mean it knows? Gustav questioned as a wave of eeriness permeated the room. Hendrik nodded in affirmation. But that should be impossible. Gustav knew just how powerful the ancient hourglass was. No being, no matter how powerful, could overcome its effects. Impossible in this dimension, yes, but the other one. Immediately after Hendrik pointed this out, Gustav's eyes widened in realization. If the being is truly from the other world, then the time there wasn't affected, and if that is the case, then whoever sent it here in the first place must still be aware that they already came here. Gustav pieced things together very quickly. Just what is that being? He questioned out loud. That is what I would like to know as well. In that other reality, the being left Grand Commander Cheyenne without a corpse. Gustav's eyes turned into slits as he spoke. I sensed its presence faintly but could not predict its appearance. The problem is, this being is not supposed to exist, Hendrik voiced with a tone of uncertainty. What are you trying to say? Gustav questioned with a concerned tone. I don't completely understand it myself, but that being's existence seems to be some kind of anomaly. Anyone from the other world is not supposed to be able to use strength on that scale in this world, no matter how powerful they originally were, Hendrik replied with a perturbed expression. I did hear that Grand Commander Cheyenne mentioned from his last encounter that the presence of that being seemed unstable. Chimed in, sounding a bit rattled. We need more information. Gustav tried standing again, only to hold his gut in pain. Just relax. I'll try to get more info, but you stay here and recuperate. He placed his hand on Gustav's shoulder. Sigh. First scientists ill and now this. Troubles never end. Gustav mumbled while brushing E's hand off his shoulder. I can't stay put, he added while forcing himself up. Come on, man, you haven't even taken a breather since. Nagged. Did you find the scientist? Gustav inquired. Silence. That's what I thought, Gustav stated while taking slow and painful steps forward. The system suddenly phased out of him and blocked his path. You are trying to get yourself killed, the system voiced with a distasteful tone. Out of my way, I need to get what I came for and do what is required, Gustav muttered groggily. Have you tried using your abilities? Or channeling any of your bloodlines? The system questioned. Gustav exclaimed with a suspicious tone. You choose to disobey orders and let Gustav Crimson escape our hands. Within a boardroom, a man in an MBO uniform yelled out. Perhaps that was due to the incompetence of the officers sent there, Mac replied from the other end of the table with an unbothered tone. Bam! General Chell slammed the table with a look of anguish. It was requested of you to go after the assailant who took down the Universal Fugitive, and retrieve him, but instead you came back empty-handed. To make things even more ridiculous, you returned with a fake prophecy of the unstable being returning to wreak havoc on Earth. Not a fake prophecy, it already happened, Mac responded. See what I am talking about. General Chell had veins popping out of his forehead and temples as he pointed shaky fingers at Mac. Ridiculous! He screamed. General Chell, relax. Grand Commander Cheyenne, who sat by the side, voiced with an authoritative but calm tone. General Chell gritted his teeth and sat once more. It looked like he was trying to quell his current rage. Meanwhile, Mac didn't look bothered in the slightest. Mac, what is the basis for your claim? Grand Commander Cheyenne inquired. "I'll tell you a short story," Mac voiced in response and paused briefly before resuming. "I found the person who took the kid, but a girl who was with him showed me a future course of events that had already happened. The Earth was in turmoil and millions had lost their lives because of a mistake. Can you guess what the mistake was? You leaving the research center?" Grand Commander Cheyenne pointed out. "Yes and no. No, because I still left the research center to go after him. The real issue was engaging in a fierce battle with the assailant that got so heated that Earth suffered consequences. The period I was away from the research center was when that being appeared that put the entire Earth at risk and caused the death of millions, which could have been prevented if I had remained in the research center, doing the job I returned to Earth for," Mac narrated lengthily. "Not this crap again." General Chell was about to go off when Grand Commander Cheyenne raised his right hand. He instantly stopped after seeing that gesture. "Why do you believe that it was true? It didn't happen," Grand Commander Cheyenne inquired. "Because it is. Time was reversed by the person who took Gustav Crimson. They wanted to inform me of the peril, which is what their associate did. I completely believe the girl because the moment she began showing me all that happened, my memories returned. Memories of that timeline." Mac's explanation caused everyone's mouth to widen. This was coming from the most powerful mixed blood in existence, so his words couldn't just be taken with levity. However, confusion remained. "Then why would the unstable being not return as expected?" Grand Commander Cheyenne questioned. "Because if I can remember that timeline, then so can they. Why would anyone want to repeat what would potentially turn out bad for them?" Mac's response caused their eyes to widen in realization. Grand Commander Cheyenne felt that it made absolute sense. That being was more powerful than him as an alpha, with their strength level being close to that of Jack and Mac, who were capable of being immune to time-related abilities. They might have remembered everything as well. "He still disobeyed," General Chell stated. "For the betterment of Earth, what we need to do now is find the person who took Gustav Crimson," Grand Commander Cheyenne voiced with a rational look. "Any clues?" Grand Commander Cheyenne turned to Mac. "No. They're long gone," Mac responded bluntly. "They must still be on the planet. We should pan out more forces to search," one of the commanders in the room suggested. The meeting went on for about 30 minutes more, with every officer present suggesting different tactics to find the assailant or draw them out. After it ended, everyone except Mac and one more officer moved out. The meeting was held in the IC Research Center because Mac had stated that he would not be leaving the place. Since they couldn't bring him to the MBO Tower in Plankton City for the meeting, they had to bring the meeting to him. For Mac, even a single second was plenty for chaos to ensue, especially with an enemy like the unstable being, so he didn't want to be any long distance away from the research center. "I have a feeling that we are not getting to the bottom of this." Grand Commander Cheyenne had a contemplative look as he voiced out to the commander who remained on his command. "What was Gustav Crimson after? Why would he just come out of hiding and wreak havoc on a city that one of his closest friends grew up in? He might be cold, but it seems unlikely that he would do that. Also, we are still unaware of the identity of the being that stopped him. How is that being able to reverse time on such a scale? I believe that if we uncover all of this, we will be able to find Gustav Crimson." Commander Zanatus laid out his concerns, and they aligned with that of the Grand Commander. "From what I have heard about the kid's strength, I do not believe he would go down so easily. There must be something amiss," Grand Commander Cheyenne added. "I need to know the answer to these questions. Can I leave the investigation to you?" he said to Commander Zanatus. "As you wish, sir," Commander Zanatus responded with a chest salute and turned around to walk out. Grhhhh in the passageway, an illusionary figure phased out of the wall and stared in the direction of the officer who was walking away. It proceeded to follow the officer. Within an all-blue space, a figure with multiple glowing strings attached to different parts of his body could be spotted suspended in midair. Chapter 14:12 I heard you were looking for me. Will you tell me where he is, or shall we do this the hard way? Gustav's voice rang out as he closed in on the person. What could you possibly do to me that I wouldn't expect? You are me. The clone, who was now conscious, responded with a tone of mischief. No, you are a failed attempt at being me. A counterfeit, an anomaly, a pitiful test tube fetus, Gustav said while approaching. The clone's face tightened with disdain. Just get it over with. I know you won't let it out, so I might as well just take it from you, Gustav said while wrapping his fingers around the clone's face. Memory siphoning has been activated. Gustav pressed his hand against the face of the struggling clone as he waited for memories to appear in his mind, but even after a couple of seconds had gone by, there was still nothing. Target mental fortitude is too high, memory siphoning has failed. Gustav was taken aback. You said I could use this one, so why this? Gustav inquired internally with a look of bafflement. Yes, not all your abilities are gone. This one is available. You are just unlucky because your clone has a very high mental fortitude, the system answered. Does this mean I really can't siphon his memories? Gustav intoned with a confirmatory look. Does Sherlock? Gustav retracted his hand with a disturbed look, causing the clone to stare at him with an expression of suspicion. There were several abilities the clone didn't possess, so it didn't have an idea of what Gustav wanted to do. Scientist Zill had extracted Gustav's cells at a time when Gustav was still kilo-ranked strength. Although the clone was more powerful than kilo-ranked mixed blood, it was still very far from reaching the strength of a bet-ranked mixed blood, and Gustav was as powerful as an Alf when they faced off, so the disparity was massive. This would have been much easier if I could still spread my perception across the earth. How long did you say it would take for me to return to full strength? Gustav inquired. 4 to 5 days, the system answered. Gustav couldn't help but display a concerned expression. Only a day had passed since he regained consciousness, and now he had to wait for another 5 days before he could regain full power. The system had informed him earlier that using the ancient hourglass had caused him too much strain, and it had finally taken effect. Although it was sudden, the system explained that he had to make sure he didn't use the hourglass for the next 3 months, and when he finally did, he had to make sure a reasonable amount of time would have passed before he made use of it again. The system had explained that even though he had the strength of an alpha, he wasn't an actual alpha yet. So, even if he was capable of activating the sacred items, he had to limit their usage till he became a full-fledged alpha rank. That way he would no longer get any negative effects from constant usage aside from normal energy deduction. The problem now was finding Scientist Zill. Gustav had put Enric and E on helping with the situation, but they didn't have much luck with it. Why are you keeping his location from me? Gustav questioned. He is my maker, Gustav's clone replied. No, that is not it. There is something, isn't there? Gustav noticed the clone's eyes flash faintly before returning to their usual dim look. I knew it, Gustav stated firmly. You don't know nothing, the clone blurted. Tell me, what exactly is he up to? Gustav inquired while grabbing his chin and forcibly pulling the clone closer to his face. You will know when he is finished. A faint smirk appeared on the face of the clone. Gustav felt like he was looking in a mirror. Except for the eye patch, this was his look of mischief. So that is it. The reason you appeared in Arabia City was to divert my attention because of whatever Scientist Zill is planning. You were never looking to win. You acted recklessly to prevent me from getting him, which means he must have been in Burning Sands City at that time. Gustav analyzed the whole situation in a couple of seconds. Bravo, you're slowly starting to get it. The clone chuckled a little. He isn't in Burning Sands City anymore because he must have finished whatever he was working on. Gustav further pointed out. Keep going, you're getting there. The clone chimed in. Which means he must be finalizing things at the moment if he hasn't already done that. The clone was about to speak again when Gustav drove a fist into his gut. Blurg. He spat out a mouthful of blood while Gustav stared at him intensely. Tell me where he is right now, Gustav voiced with a bloodthirsty tone. You know. Huff. 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 That won't work on me. The clone muttered amidst hurried breaths. Gustav knew he was right. The high mental fortitude was proof that he would just be wasting his time by trying to torture the answer out of his clone. It was his clone after all. Gustav squinted his eyes before letting the clone go. He turned around in the next moment and walked out of the space. The moment he arrived back in the living room of E.'s apartment, he spotted a figure seated in front waiting. "Hello, Gustav. I heard you were looking for me." Burning Sand City, within a very luxurious-looking abode, E. and Hendrik were seated before a middle-aged-looking man. On his right was a young and handsome-looking boy with dark hair. He looked no older than 18 years of age. "I am afraid I cannot help you two officers. Zil has not been a part of the family gathering for over a year now. He has stayed out of contact for so long, so we do not have any information to give." The middle-aged man spoke cautiously. "Anything at all will help. Be it phone records, some words he may have mentioned, really anything. We just need to find him to ask a couple of questions. Nothing too crazy." Voiced with an easygoing tone. He never called once. He only left a message one time that he was pursuing scientific research and might be away for years. We know how he tends to be. The middle-aged man kept explaining while the boy beside him kept mute with a respectful look. Minutes later, E. and Hendrik were leaving the luxurious-looking household together. Sigh. Another waste of time. E. lamented as they walked out of the exquisite-looking environs. This is starting to get bothersome. We really can't find him anywhere around the city, and clues are becoming impossible to gather as well," Hendrik said while observing the surroundings. "Wait." A voice suddenly called out to them from behind. Hendrik and E. turned around simultaneously upon hearing the soft masculine voice. The voice had been coming from the 5'11" tall 18-year-old with the scruffy black hair who was present in the living room with them a couple of minutes ago. "Oh, it's that kid," E. voiced upon recognizing him, causing Hendrik's face to twitch a little. He was younger than the supposed kid. "What is it?" Hendrik asked as he drew closer. "I want to help," the 18-year-old with scruffy black hair voiced upon arriving before them. Sir Gil already told us everything, so." Hendrik felt the boy who looked like a butler there couldn't possibly help them. He was dressed in a full black suit outfit and a tie. It looked super expensive but still made the kid look like a worker there. "Everything he knows. There are a few things I know that nobody else does," he answered with a cryptic tone. E. and Hendrik were immediately interested in what he had to say, even though they still seemed a bit suspicious. E. gestured for him to follow them into the hover car waiting outside so they could talk in a secluded environment. "I am Damien, the grandson of the person you're trying to find." He introduced himself to ease their suspicion the moment they arrived at the back of the spacious hover car. "He's not a butler?" Both E. and Hendrik couldn't believe their ears the moment he spoke. Not only wasn't this kid a mere worker in Zil's household, but he was also actually the grandson of the person they had been looking for. E. and Hendrik couldn't hide the surprised looks on their faces. Do rich kids usually look this meek? E. who was seated on the opposite side, reached out to receive Damien's handshake after a while. "Nice to meet you, Damien." Chapter 1413 Photo Project E. who was seated on the opposite side, reached out to receive Damien's handshake after a while. "Nice to meet you, Damien, Before he could complete his sentence, Damien chimed in. "I know you too, you are friends of Big Brother Gustav," he stated with a look of excitement. "Big Brother Gustav? Friends?" E. and Hendrik voiced simultaneously. "He once came to Burning Sand City and caused a ruckus. He might be on the wanted list now, but to me, he is still Big Brother, and I will help anyone related to Big Brother Gustav." Damien had a look of adoration as he spoke. E. immediately understood that Gustav must have had a type of relationship with the kid when he worked with scientist Zil, who ended up betraying him. Hendrik stared at Damien with a slight look of jealousy. "Big Brother, eh? Well, I am his real. Yes, we are his friends," E. cut Endrik off before he could complete his sentence. Endrik squinted his eyes while he shook his head, signaling for him not to reveal his true identity. It is great to meet you too. I am sure you two must be just as amazing as Big Brother Gustav. Damien voiced with interest in his eyes, but he swiftly went to the point. How exactly can you help us? You see, this matter is directly linked to Gustav, so we need to find your grandfather. Voiced with a longing gaze. First, grandfather was working on something that I know was related to Big Brother, but he didn't want anyone finding out. I was focusing on school then, so I never tried to ask him or know more about it. Damien began narrating. However, things got more suspicious when I visited his lab one day and found some documents of land purchases on his desk. Just checked out of curiosity since he wasn't in at the time, but the moment he walked in, he drove me out of his lab. This was quite the shocker for me since I usually visited him even when he was working with Big Brother Gustav. Damien added lengthily. My grandfather was of course still nice to me and promised to take me to see a live performance afterwards. He just told me he was too busy at the time and didn't want any distractions, so I shouldn't visit his lab. I didn't think much of it, but eventually he became harder and harder to see until we got the message that he would be out of touch for a long time till his research was completed. I haven't seen my grandfather in nearly 2 years. Even Siri was sad for a long time. And Endrik exchanged glances in understanding. Damien was practically telling them that his grandfather had been busy creating a clone of Gustav the entire time. It added up since no one was aware of the clone's existence till it revealed itself. This made them wonder why scientist Sil would even let the clone expose itself like that. There was no doubt that it would get caught, so it seemed like a waste. Who would want their hard work of 2 years to go to waste? There's more to this than just clone creation, Endrik came to the conclusion very swiftly. Do you know where those lands he bought are situated? Endrik questioned with a suspicious look. Yes, the reason I found it out was that these locations used to belong to the Ring Lords before Big Brother Gustav got rid of all of them, Damien answered. Ring Lords? Wasn't it those guys that ran illegal underground battles and were practically the crime bosses of this city? He recalled what happened back then. However, Endrik had no idea since he wasn't around at the time. It had caused such a huge ruckus that even they had to be involved. It made he remember that it wasn't the first time Gustav had been branded a criminal. Just that this time, it was on a way larger scale. Where exactly are these lands? Endrik inquired. They should be in the city. He was a little bothered because they had already checked every possible location in the city and still couldn't find Scientist Sil. Not in the city. Around the city, Damien corrected. Huh. And Endrik exchanged confused looks since they were well aware that the only things around the city were yellow sands that were always ablaze. I don't know why he would do that when the underground tunnelways deep underneath the burning sands that led to the fight arena had already collapsed. They have since been inaccessible. Damien voiced in bafflement. And Endrik's faces suddenly lit up with expressions of realization. How long ago did the tunnelways collapse? Endrik inquired. Over 2 years ago, when Big Brother Gustav came to this city. Damien answered. Endrik and he exchanged glances once more before jumping to their feet. Damien was confused as he watched them step out of the hover car in urgency. He made a gesture by crossing his index and middle fingers. Zruro, a violet-colored vortex suddenly appeared before them. Stay close, Endrik said to Damien as he spread his telekinetic wear. Damien was immediately covered with invisible layers of telekinetic energy as they stepped into the vortex. The view before them transformed the moment they arrived on the other side. Damien jumped upwards as soon as he noticed they were standing on the flaming sand. Endrik caught him in midair and pulled him downwards casually. I said to stay close. Damien landed on the sand and noticed he wasn't burned up. Oh? He raised his right foot and planted it back on the burning sand repeatedly. He seemed quite astonished. How are you doing this? Damien questioned after recalling that one would need to be at least bet-rank to pull something like this off. Damien, are you saying the lands he bought are underneath these sands? E called out to him. Damien swiftly regained his composure and answered. Yes, thousands of feet below are ruined tunnelways. E closed his eyes and tried to focus while making a hand gesture. After a few seconds, so that's why, he muttered in conclusion while reopening his eyes. Can you send your telekinesis beneath? Asked Endrick by the side. It throws my senses off, almost like there isn't a single space to scout down there, Endrick replied. But if I forcefully push it, I can go further, and finally sense the space down there, he added. Same. For me to open a vortex that would lead there, I would have to be aware that a space was down there. When Gustav and I came here earlier, we couldn't sense anything like that. Although we weren't looking around here. With Gustav's senses, he would originally be able to sense the existence of space down there, but with the burning sands throwing off our senses, we skipped without suspecting that anything could be down there. Analyzed with a disturbed expression. Are you saying grandfather is down there? Damien inquired. We do not know, but one thing we are sure of is, those tunnelways have been renovated. But no one knew. Endrick responded. Come, let's go. Voiced while opening another vortex. The trio stepped forward once more and arrived in another location upon entering the violet vortex. In the dimly lit confines of a massive tunnelway, the hum of machinery echoed as three figures materialized and stepped out of a swirling violet light. The air shimmered momentarily, and with a soft ripple, they stood surrounded by a myriad of advanced equipment and humanoid bots engaged in purposeful tasks. Are we underground? Damien inquired. Holographic displays dotted the environment, projecting three-dimensional models of complex research findings. Some diagrams looked atomic and cellular. Looks like we found where your grandfather has been hiding out, Endrick muttered as he approached the bots. Their expressions shifted from curiosity to engagement as they tapped on some of the holographic displays to see what scientist Zill had been up to. All these are too complicated. I don't understand what I am looking at. Scratched his afro hair with a befuddled expression. Damien moved over to him and began scanning the scientist's notes and diagrams on display. This is a finished research. Damien spoke with a tone of certainty. Finished? Maybe that is why he isn't here currently. Had a look of intrigue as he responded. But what was he working on? Asked once more. It says, Photo Project, Damien stated while scrolling to further display other parts of the research. What the fuck is a Photo Project? Had an even more bamboozled look on his face. Chapter 1414, The Abduction. The fuck is a Photo Project? He had a more confused look on his face. I'm still checking. Damien's face went from intrigue to awe and then to confusion again. This is... After some minutes had gone by, the expression on his face had changed to disbelief. What is it? He questioned. Damien still had an incredibly bothered look on his face when Endrick spoke from the other end. He is going after my brother. Eh? Your brother? Who is that? Damn it! He wanted to berate Endrick, but now wasn't the time. Going after Gustav? Why? He inquired. Why is he calling Gustav his brother? Damien was still confused. Because even though the research is completed, he made a deal. Endrick threw a paperback diary to caught the book and stared at its contents hastily. A sense of foreboding filled the lab tunnelway as he read. Fuck me, he voiced the moment he came across a sentence. The last bit is to give the clone what it wants. Gustav's brain. Subconsciously dropped the book and made a gesture with his fingers. We're leaving now, he yelled while opening a vortex. The moment the vortex opened up, they jumped in. The trio instantly arrived at E's apartment and scanned the surroundings. The whole place was in shambles. Gustav! he yelled while sprinting towards the passageway that led to one of the rooms. Endrick, on the other hand, moved around and headed towards the balcony area. Damien stood still in shock as he tried to make sense of everything that was transpiring in front of him. Why are they calling for Gustav? Why did the other younger dude call him brother? A clone? Why is this place trashed? What does his grandfather want with Gustav's brain? He was in so much confusion at the moment, so he just looked around. That was when he spotted a trail of blood. He followed the trail and spotted what looked like bloodied feminine legs underneath a wrecked table. He couldn't see the rest of the body since she seemed buried underneath the rubble, but the stench of blood had gotten much thicker. "There is someone here!" Damien yelled. And Endrick instantly appeared beside him the moment they heard this. The rubble lifted into the air without anyone making physical contact while he moved to grab the injured figure underneath. "It's Circe, and she is badly wounded," he announced with a grave tone after spotting the fist-sized hole in her right chest area. Blood was oozing out profusely and everything was still looking relatively fresh, so he could tell that whatever happened there must have occurred no more than an hour ago. Endrick swiftly reached his storage space and plucked a healing med from there. "Who could have done this?" Damien asked with intense concern as he watched them cater to the unconscious Circe. "I can't put it past your grandfather," Endrick voiced with a tone of annoyance. "How? It's not." Damien was about to refute when he interrupted. "Gustav was here, and now he is not anymore. This girl is someone he cherishes, you can already guess what happened." He lifted Circe after pushing the med into her mouth and placed her on one of the sofas that was still intact. Everything else in the vicinity either had holes in them or was completely shredded. Damien tried to put two and two together and realized that it truly seemed like his grandfather was responsible for the chaos before them. But how would he even be able to pull something like this off? Damien couldn't quite grasp how someone like Gustav would be taken easily. "Gustav is injured. He is not at his full strength. Somehow your grandfather must have found out and also located this place." Endrick gritted his teeth in regret. "I should have stayed here with him." He blamed himself for the current turn of events. "How is he even here? Last I remembered, he wreaked havoc on Arabia City and got caught by the authorities." Damien was still very much confused. "That wasn't him, and those idiots are lying. They didn't catch him because Gustav caught that fake himself," Endrick voiced in response. "What?" Damien realized that the more he heard, the greater his confusion. Although he had skimmed through the Foro Project write-ups, he still didn't know about the clone. All he knew was the fact that his grandfather used Gustav's cells for that. A lot was still very unclear to him. *Core. Circe's cough suddenly attracted their attention to her. "She's regaining consciousness," Endrick whispered. The place instantly quietened as they watched Circe slowly open her eyes. "Father!" The moment her vision returned, she yelled while lunging forward. "Father?" Damien was met with another round of confusion as he watched Yi hold her down in place. "Relax, you were pretty injured, let the healing be completed before you move around like that," Yi said with a tone of caution. "But shush, relax first." Yi had her lay back down. "Now slowly recount what happened to you," Endrick said with a tone of concern. A very big man came." The moment she began speaking, Damien confirmed that his grandfather was truly the culprit. 1 hour ago. "I heard you've been looking for me." A 12-foot-tall man with 6 feet long dark hair sat in place with light rays reflecting off his glasses. Anyone who witnessed the sight would have jumped back in fright, but Gustav was the recipient. Thank you for delivering yourself to my doorstep." "Zil," Gustav voiced with an unfazed tone as he stepped forward. "Is that a bluff? Because I just so happen to be aware that you're not at full strength right now." Sir Zil responded with a hint of confidence. "It matters not. The strength I have would be enough to shatter all the bones in your body and have you regretting replicating my cells for the rest of your days." Gustav's energy began to rise as he arrived before Scientist Zil with a very frosty gaze. "Wait." Sir Zil raised his hand rather calmly. Gustav paused while raising a brow. "Wouldn't you like to know why I did it?" Sir Zil questioned. "I don't give a damn." You deceived me, you did the one thing I have always been wary of. All you scientists are the same. Selfish, vicious, ambitious. You never care about anything or anyone so long as you accomplish your goals. Gustav shook his head slightly while speaking. I was wrong to think you were any different. Scientist Zill had a visibly disturbed look upon hearing all of these. I am sorry. I just had to. When you hear why I did it, you will understand. Enough. I am unwilling to listen to the nonsense you have to say. It almost seems like y'all grow even more selfish with age. Gustav reached out and grabbed Scientist Zill by the throat. GHRHH. We ate. He gurgled while holding on to Gustav's arm. WH at ABO, out de mean, he low, ok's you up to you be you. T-Hua, don't forgive yo, you F4TH his. I don't care, Gustav stated as his killing intent rose. I am sorry. Sir Zill suddenly stopped struggling. For this. A small purplish circular item appeared in Sir Zill's grasp the moment he let out the words .at first. Gustav thought he was still apologizing for what he did, till he noticed the item. Tap. Before he could react, Sir Zill had tapped the button in the center of the item. CZHHRHHH. It suddenly emitted a high-pitched wave of light that blasted across the surroundings. HNGH. Gustav suddenly felt an immense headache as he subconsciously let go of Scientist Zill. Bam! In the next seconds, space and the surroundings contrasted and ripped apart. Holes were burrowed into Gustav's spatial storage, and they began to integrate with the real world. While Gustav was holding his head in pain, one of the spatial worlds getting ripped open turned out to be where the clone was kept. The hole continued to grow till it was wide enough for a person to walk through, then the clone stepped out. The space had fallen apart, and it had gotten freed. Bam! 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 Bang! The sound of multiple items colliding with the floor rang out intensely as lot of things Gustav stored in his spatial storage fell out. Gustav clenched his fist and reduced the sensitivity of his brain to accommodate the high-pitched whirring. The moment he managed to regain a bit of clarity, he spotted the clone standing right before him. Bam! Two palms slammed into his face from the left and right at the same time. Blood gushed out of Gustav's eyes, nose, and ears as visibility became another issue. I got fooled again. Gustav yelled internally as he staggered backward. His vision had been completely blinded by blood at that moment, but he could sense a fist hurling at his chest. Thwhy? Chapter 14-15 The Abduction. The fuck is a Foro project? He had a more confused look on his face. I'm still checking. Damien's face went from intrigue to awe and then to confusion again. This is. After some minutes had gone by, the expression on his face had changed to disbelief. What is it? He questioned. Damien still had an incredibly bothered look on his face when Endrick spoke from the other end. He is going after my brother. Eh? Your brother? Who is that? Damn it! You wanted to berate Endrick, but now wasn't the time. Going after Gustav? Why? He inquired. Eh? Why is he calling Gustav his brother? Damien was still confused. Because even though the research is completed, he made a deal. Endrick threw a paperback diary to caught the book and stared at its contents hastily. A sense of foreboding filled the lab tunnelway as he read. Fuck me, he voiced the moment he came across a sentence. The last bit is to give the clone what it wants. Gustav's brain. Subconsciously dropped the book and made a gesture with his fingers. We're leaving now, he yelled while opening a vortex. The moment the vortex opened up, they jumped in. The trio instantly arrived at E.'s apartment and scanned the surroundings. The whole place was in shambles. Gustav! E. yelled while sprinting towards the passageway that led to one of the rooms. Endrick, on the other hand, moved around and headed towards the balcony area. Damien stood still in shock as he tried to make sense of everything that was transpiring in front of him. Why are they calling for Gustav? Why did the other younger dude call him brother? A clone? Why is this place trashed? What does his grandfather want with Gustav's brain? He was in so much confusion at the moment, so he just looked around. That was when he spotted a trail of blood. He followed the trail and spotted what looked like bloodied feminine legs underneath a wrecked table. He couldn't see the rest of the body since she seemed buried underneath the rubble, but the stench of blood had gotten much thicker. "There is someone here!" Damien yelled. And Hendrik instantly appeared beside him the moment they heard this. The rubble lifted into the air without anyone making physical contact while he moved to grab the injured figure underneath. "It's Circe, and she is badly wounded," announced with a grave tone after spotting the fist-sized hole in her right chest area. Blood was oozing out profusely and everything was still looking relatively fresh, so he could tell that whatever happened there must have occurred no more than an hour ago. Hendrik swiftly reached his storage space and plucked a healing med from there. "Who could have done this?" Damien asked with intense concern as he watched them cater to the unconscious Circe. "I can't put it past your grandfather," Hendrik voiced with a tone of annoyance. "How? It's not." Damien was about to refute when he interrupted. "Gustav was here, and now he is not anymore. This girl is someone he cherishes, you can already guess what happened." Lifted Circe after pushing the med into her mouth and placed her on one of the sofas that was still intact. Everything else in the vicinity either had holes in them or was completely shredded. Damien tried to put two and two together and realized that it truly seemed like his grandfather was responsible for the chaos before them. But how would he even be able to pull something like this off? Damien couldn't quite grasp how someone like Gustav would be taken easily. "Gustav is injured. He is not at his full strength. Somehow your grandfather must have found out and also located this place." Hendrik gritted his teeth in regret. "I should have stayed here with him." He blamed himself for the current turn of events. "How is he even here? Last I remembered, he wreaked havoc on Arabia City and got caught by the authorities." Damien was still very much confused. "That wasn't him and those idiots are lying. They didn't catch him because Gustav caught that fake himself," Hendrik voiced in response. "What?" Damien realized that the more he heard, the greater his confusion. Although he had skimmed through the photo project write-ups, he still didn't know about the clone. All he knew was the fact that his grandfather used Gustav's cells for that. A lot was still very unclear to him. *core. Circe's cough suddenly attracted their attention to her. "She's regaining consciousness," Hendrik whispered. The place instantly quietened as they watched Circe slowly open her eyes. "Father!" The moment her vision returned, she yelled while lunging forward. "Father?" Damien was met with another round of confusion as he watched hold her down in place. "Relax, you were pretty injured, let the healing be completed before you move around like that," said with a tone of caution. "But..." "Shush, relax first." Had her lay back down. "Now slowly recount what happened to you," Hendrik said with a tone of concern. A very big man came." The moment she began speaking, Damien confirmed that his grandfather was truly the culprit. "1 hour ago. I heard you've been looking for me." A 12-foot-tall man with 6 feet long dark hair sat in place with light rays reflecting off his glasses. Anyone who witnessed the sight would have jumped back in fright, but Gustav was the recipient. Thank you for delivering yourself to my doorstep." "Zil," Gustav voiced with an unfazed tone as he stepped forward. "Is that a bluff? Because I just so happen to be aware that you're not at full strength right now." Sir Zil responded with a hint of confidence. "It matters not. The strength I have would be enough to shatter all the bones in your body and have you regretting replicating my cells for the rest of your days." Gustav's energy began to rise as he arrived before Scientist Zil with a very frosty gaze. "Wait." Sir Zil raised his hand rather calmly. Gustav paused while raising a brow. "Wouldn't you like to know why I did it?" Sir Zil questioned. "I don't give a damn. You deceived me. You did the one thing I have always been wary of. All you scientists are the same. Selfish, vicious, ambitious. You never care about anything or anyone so long as you accomplish your goals. Gustav shook his head slightly while speaking. I was wrong to think you were any different. Scientist Zill had a visibly disturbed look upon hearing all of these. I am sorry. I just had to. When you hear why I did it, you will understand. Enough. I am unwilling to listen to the nonsense you have to say. It almost seems like y'all grow even more selfish with age. Gustav reached out and grabbed Scientist Zill by the throat. GHRHH. We ate. He gurgled while holding on to Gustav's arm. WH at ABO. Out mean. He low. Ok's you up to you boo. Tihiwa. Don't forgive yo. You F4th his. I don't care. Gustav stated as his killing intent rose. I am sorry. Sir Zill suddenly stopped struggling. For this. A small purplish circular item appeared in Sir Zill's grasp the moment he let out the words. At first, Gustav thought he was still apologizing for what he did, till he noticed the item. Tap! Before he could react, Sir Zill had tapped the button in the center of the item. ZZHHRHHH. It suddenly emitted a high-pitched wave of light that blasted across the surroundings. HNGH. Gustav suddenly felt an immense headache as he subconsciously let go of Scientist Zill. Bam! In the next seconds, space in the surroundings contrasted and ripped apart. Holes were burrowed into Gustav's spatial storage and they began to integrate with the real world. While Gustav was holding his head in pain, one of the spatial worlds getting ripped open turned out to be where the clone was kept. The hole continued to grow till it was wide enough for a person to walk through, then the clone stepped out. The space had fallen apart, and it had gotten freed. Bam! 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 Bang! The sound of multiple items colliding with the floor rang out intensely as a lot of things Gustav stored in his spatial storage fell out. Gustav clenched his fist and reduced the sensitivity of his brain to accommodate the high-pitched whirring. The moment he managed to regain a bit of clarity, he spotted the clone standing right before him. Bam! Two palms slammed into his face from the left and right at the same time. Blood gushed out of Gustav's eyes, nose, and ears as visibility became another issue. I got fooled, again! Gustav yelled internally as he staggered backward. His vision had been completely blinded by blood at that moment, but he could sense a fist hurling at his chest. Thwhy? Chapter 14:16 The flawed concept of equality. Gustav chuckled a bit while speaking. You've tricked me for the last time. I haven't finished telling you everything, Sir Zill stated. Very soon that mindset of yours will change, he added before resuming his narrative. According to Sir Zill, he dedicated close to 3 years of his life to regrowing a replica of Gustav that wasn't 100% success. However, his original aim wasn't to create a clone. He just needed to explore the cells of Gustav in its early creation stages where the new life and canvases of abilities mirrored on them hadn't been transformed into vitality. The only way for me to do that was by using G2, and through him I was finally able to extract them in their potency stage. Sir Zill referenced the clone. Do you know that these cells breed abilities that are not bloodline-based? It is the very nexus of creation, he added with a nearly crazed look. Yay? Gustav muttered with a disinterested tone. That is when I decided to create the Foro project. Sir Zill had an inspirational look on his face the moment he said that. Foro what? Gustav had a visibly irked expression upon hearing that. It was something I formed from 2 words. For all, because the purpose of this project is to create equality for all, Sir Zill explained. Equality is a thing of fairy tales. It is what the people in positions of power use to deceive the masses. It is delusional. It is a form of control. Equality isn't real, and you should know that. Gustav rolled his eyes like he was an adult listening to a kid rant passionately about impossibilities, despite the huge disparity in their ages. Except this time I can finally actualize it. You see, I found something else in your cells. Something that will greatly help this cause of mine. Sir Zill's tone had a bit of ominosity in it, causing Gustav's face to display a brief hint of interest. The final project is meant to bless every single person on Earth with supernatural abilities and automatic regeneration regardless of whether they are human, Slarkovs, or low-grade mixed bloods. Every single person will now have a proper ability, and it shall no longer be exclusive to mixed bloods alone, Sir Zil revealed. If this is meant to bring equality, then you really are more stupid than I thought. Mixed bloods already make up most of the Earth's population, so almost everyone already has supernatural abilities through their bloodlines. Gustav shot Sir Zil a look that expressed how ridiculous the scientist sounded. Once again, you didn't let me finish, Sir Zil muttered. The Foro project isn't just meant to give everyone supernatural abilities, it is also meant to do something else. That thing I found in your cells can erase bloodlines, he proceeded to reveal. I can erase bloodlines? Gustav questioned internally with a look of confusion. It's complicated, the system responded. What's complicated about it? You can't use it, that's what. Gustav was still confused about it, but Sir Zil continued speaking. The Foro project will erase bloodlines from the face of the Earth and grant everyone abilities that aren't bloodline-based. Which means the erasure of grades and ranks. Everyone will be on an equal level of power, and there no longer shall be discrimination against low-level mixed bloods or regular humans and Slarkovs. Sir Zil concluded with a bright smile on his face. I completed the final project, and now I have what is needed to bring about this new change. True equality in the power system of Earth, Sir Zil stated while stepping forward dramatically. Let me get this right. You are going to erase bloodlines just so everyone can be equal in terms of abilities? Gustav questioned. You're starting to see the light, aren't you? So now you realize that I didn't do this for my selfish gain and everything you said about me was wrong. Sir Zil pushed his glasses up slightly while moving towards a holographic panel. Did you think about the long-lasting effects of this? Gustav inquired with a tone of seriousness. No discrimination, less ego, more empathetic individuals who will now understand how their fellow Earthlings feel since they are now plunged into the same situation. Did I miss anything? Sir Zil responded both seriously and sarcastically at the same time. Loss of power balance, loss of leading position in the Alliance, becoming prey for other powerful planets, inability to stand against criminal forces since strength is now on an equal level, increase in crime rate, the inability of Earth to protect itself from extraterrestrial beings. Did I miss anything? Gustav listed rationally. Just because bloodlines will be erased, it doesn't necessarily mean the Earth won't be able to protect itself. Besides supernatural abilities, we have good technology. Everything will be fine. Sir Zil waved it off with an undisturbed expression. Trust me, the negative side effects will be worse than any positives this project might bring. You might want to rethink your decision, Gustav suggested. No, my mind is made up. You of all people should understand. Sir Zil hinted at Gustav's past. Yeah, but this is the wrong answer. I never wanted bloodlines to be erased. What I wanted was to be powerful enough to chase my dreams. There is an imbalance in the equality you so chase. You just might lead this planet to destruction, Gustav pointed out. The gas is finally ready, Sir Zil stated while stepping forward. Less than 100%. Squinting eyes face ready to burn, he stared at the holographic readings up ahead briefly before stepping forward to operate the machines in the space. The moment I burn the gas created from the Foro project at this altitude, it will change the world forever. Sir Zil tapped on a button that displayed their surroundings in the sky. From what Gustav could gather, burning this gas would cause it to spread across the Earth's skies and bring forth rain. Once that happened, Sir Zil would have achieved his goal. I hope you are aware that I will not be affected by this. Which means your equality scheme will not be actualized. Gustav knew his bloodline would remain since it was made from his cells. That is where you are wrong, Sir Zil responded while slightly turning around. I no longer have any use for you, so I will leave you to G2. He knows what to do with you, he added. Oh, I see, but even if I was no longer in existence, there would still be this fake. Your equality remains a sham. Gustav instantly put two and two together, realizing that the clone most likely wanted him gone so he could be the only Gustav in existence. He will be leaving this planet afterwards. I am not a hypocrite like you. But I do apologize for all of this and also thank you. Sir Zil sounded like he was bidding Gustav farewell. Gustav now understood why the clone took the data from the device he had kept in space to read the warp demolator. The clone wishes to not only take my life but also take my life, Gustav said internally. He wants to be you so bad. The system chimed in. I am tempted to let him, but this foolishness has gone on long enough, Gustav said internally while watching the clone approach. I just need some of your body parts to become whole, G2 stated with a longing gaze. Listen, you could never be me. You can't handle the responsibility that comes with that, Gustav said to the clone. You won't be around to know whether I handled it or not. The clone responded while slowly reaching for Gustav's neck. I feel like we've searched everywhere. Just where could they be? Questioned while standing in between Endrick and Damien on a telekinetic board deep in the skies. I don't know for sure. All I am sure of is that they need a high altitude to successfully implement the Foro project, and once they do, all mixed bloods will lose their bloodlines. Damien answered with a distressed look. They had been looking for Gustav for the past 3 hours with no luck. This is not good. For all we know, your crazy-ass grandfather may already be doing that. S remark caused Damien to glance sideways briefly. No offense, but he did lose his goddamn mind. Added. None taken, sigh. I didn't expect him to do this. Damien had a crestfallen expression. She's here. Endrick suddenly spoke. Huh? Who? Questioned with a confounded look. Endrick pointed west. Fwaya in the next moment, a bungalow-sized aircraft phased out of the thick clouds up ahead, flying in their direction. Wind scattered in all directions as it stopped right before them and a huge side door slid open. Within, an incredibly cute lady with very sharp eyes stepped forward clad in a royal blue dress. The jewelry and makeup that adorned her figure made it obvious that she came from wealth. However, her eyes bore a look that seemed almost lifeless despite her sparkling appearance. Vera! Endrick called out as they floated closer to the aircraft. Chapter 14-17 Rescuing Gustav. However, her eyes bore a look that seemed almost lifeless despite her sparkling appearance. Vera! Endrick called out as they floated closer to the aircraft. Her short pink and bluish hair danced beautifully due to the intense winds, but wasn't enough to make her lose balance in the slightest. He was surprised to see her since she suddenly went AWOL after Gustav left Earth while Damien was the clueless one out of the trio. Are you guys going to come in or what? Vera voiced from up ahead. The floating telekinetic board moved closer to the aircraft, and all 3 of them stepped in quickly. Glad you got my text, Endrick said with a relieved look. I knew he was back on Earth. I just couldn't pinpoint his exact location because I wasn't in Plankton City, Vera pointed out. Where have you been? He was a little curious considering that he and the others tried to reach her in the past but to no avail. Is that more important than finding him right now? Vera asked rhetorically. No. He muttered with a low tone. Do you know where he is at the moment? Endrick inquired. I can sense him so I know where we need to go, Vera replied while moving towards the cockpit area. Whoosh, the aircraft sped towards the northwest in the next instant, disappearing into the clouds. You little! The clone groaned as it tried squeezing Gustav's neck multiple times but kept getting poked. His palms were bloody at the moment. He stared at Gustav in anger, who happened to have Iroh silk surrounding his entire body. Despite being my clone, you don't seem to be aware that nothing can truly constrict my abilities for long, Gustav stated while shooting G2 a cold glare. Well, if you were no longer restrained, you would have busted out of this by now, G2 responded while pointing at the device Gustav was strapped to. Which means you are still very much constricted, he added. Not for long, Gustav stated once more. G2 gritted his teeth in frustration and stormed towards Sir Zil up ahead, who was ready to commence burning of the gas. All he needed to do at this moment was tap a button and his goal would become reality. Having difficulties? Sir Zil paused to ask G2 as soon as he noticed his approach. I can't get past those things that surround his body like an armor, G2 answered. Don't worry, he'll run out of energy soon. Sir Zil waved it off and reached out his finger, ready to tap the button. I don't think that will happen. We need to take care of him now, G2 voiced once more, causing Sir Zil to pause. Then do that. Sir Zil turned around with a dismissive look. After you rid the world of bloodlines, hell destroy us both. I am not looking for that to happen. I don't care so long as I can achieve this. You promised to help me. Are you going back on your word? A back-and-forth dialogue imbued with disagreements ensued between both of them. Just let me be done with this first. Sir Zil was already tired of the back and forth, so he decided it was time to tap the button. The moment he turned back around, a loud crash rang out. Bam! The entire floating structure quaked intensely as Sir Zil as well as the clone got sent flying. It seemed like something had collided with the structure. What was that? G2 was quick to pick himself back up and turn to stare at the point of impact. An aircraft. Alarms began to blare loudly at this moment. Usually the security system should have alerted them of any disturbance, but it would seem the aircraft had moved with such speed that it collided before the warnings could ring out. He is here! A loud voice drifted into Sir Zil's ear as he rose to his feet. Behind, a dark curly-haired youngster was standing right before Gustav. Up ahead, another youngster with bushy afro stood before the control panel where the activation sequence was situated. And standing right before G2 was a young lady with pinkish hair mixed with blue stripes. Are you the one responsible for this? She stared at G2 with a look of intensity despite being 2 heads shorter than he was. Get out of my way! G2's arms transformed into muscular beastly form as he instantly reached out to grab Vera. Bam! He held her up with his massive hands clasped tightly around her figure. The squeaky sound of bones rang out as he tried to crush her in his grasp. G2 was taken aback as he noticed the uncaring and lifeless look in Vera's eyes despite how hard he was squeezing. Although it looked like he could crush her, she didn't seem to be in any kind of pain. You might have his face, but you are truly nothing like him. Vera's voice chimed with a tone of disregard as freed one of her arm and touched G2's right wrist. What was that supposed to do? G2 nearly busted into laughter after seeing no reaction. At this moment Vera displayed a crazed smile, causing G2 to feel a sense of foreboding. On the other end of the space. Bang! 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 He was unleashing furious blows on the control panels before him, causing bits and parts to get smashed in. What are you doing? No! Sir Zil's rage-filled voice rang out as he charged at Fyi. Damien suddenly dashed to his front and stood in Sir Zil's path. Hello, grandfather. The apparent hint of disappointment in his voice caused Sir Zil to take a pause. Out of my way, boy! Sir Zil commanded with a tone of authority. Men. Why would you orchestrate such a dastardly plot? You couldn't have spent that time with your family instead? Cyril would be heartbroken if she found out about this. Damien shook his head in disapproval. You wouldn't understand. Sir Zil had both an expression of remorse and vindication at the same time. Understand you trying to erase the bloodline of every single mixed blood and murder Gustav Crimson? Do you hear yourself, Grandpa? How deep have you buried your humanity? Damien questioned with his tone slowly rising in annoyance. You know nothing. I do this because of the so-called humanity you think is buried. Sir Zil stepped forward and tried to shove Damien aside. Damien was shoved aside, but another Damien appeared in place. Stop with your tricks. Sir Zil pushed the second one forward only for another one to phase out of his back. No! All 3 Damiens chanted at the same time before grabbing Sir Zil from different angles. They held him down in place as more Damiens continued to appear. Sir Zil managed to pull something out of his suit while he was getting held in place. Sorry about this, The Damiens had looks of confusion till he tapped the button of the device in his grasp. Thrierian, an unexpected burst of light was emitted from the device as a high-pitched sound reverberated across the vicinity. All. Grah! Damien fell to his knees as the multiple clones from his bloodline ability got pulled back into him. He held his head in pain and planted his face to the ground subconsciously. You left me with no choice, either of you did, Sir Zil stated while looking around in pity. Damien wasn't the only one affected by the device. Endrick, Vera and Gustav were affected as well. Except for Gustav, who was still strapped to the apparatus, everyone else was writhing in pain on the floor. Sir Zil crossed past his grandson and stepped forward till he arrived at the control panels. It was completely totaled already by Damn it! Sir Zil cursed in frustration as he checked around for how he could salvage the situation. Unable to burn gas, the AI installed into the floating structure kept announcing the same thing over and over again no matter how much Sir Zil tried. Looks like I might have to do this manually. They won't be down for long. Sir Zil stepped forward while grabbing another device from his storage unit. He looked up at a constructed route that led to the top of the floating structure where the gas was kept. At this point, Damien, Endrick and Vera were still writhing on the floor in pain. They couldn't do anything to stop Sir Zil, who was about to manually burn the gas and usher the world into an unexpected new age. G2 stepped forward while Sir Zil was trying to break through the entryway of the construct. Come on, help me out, Sir Zil said the moment he noticed G2's approach. G2 arrived before him and an unexpected scenario suddenly played out. Bam! G2 swung his fist at Sir Zil's gut, sending him flying halfway across the space with the item in his hand escaping his grasp. Chapter 14-18 Taken into Custody. You fool! What are you doing? Sir Zil yelled with a tone of anguish while trying to pick himself back up. However, before he could, G2 arrived in front of him once more. Bam! G2's swung-out leg crashed into Sir Zil's chest, sending him spiraling across the air while spitting out a mouthful of blood. Bang! Sir Zil slammed into the wall at the other end and broke through it. At that moment, G2 turned around and headed towards the spot where the device emitting the light and high-pitched whirring sound was sitting. He raised his right leg and stomped on it. Blam! The device was smashed to pieces and everyone instantly felt a sense of relief. Damien rolled to the side and breathed in and out profusely. Shit, my head nearly exploded. Cried out from the side while staggering in the process of getting up. What the hell happened? I thought he wasn't on our side. Damien voiced in confusion while pointing at G2, who was currently headed towards Vera. He isn't supposed to be, unless... S face lit up with an expression of realization upon watching G2 help Vera get up. He is on our side now. Vera chimed in from up ahead while rubbing the chin of the clone. Right, G2? She questioned with a sinister smile. Yes, Mama, G2 responded respectfully. Now go bring him back here, restrained, Vera instructed. G2 nodded before turning around to head in the direction where he blasted Sir Zil off earlier. How did you do that? Inquired with immense confusion written all over his face. It wasn't what he recalled Vera's ability to be. She has always been able to do that. I told her to keep it a secret from the start. Gustav's voice rang out from the other end. Gus! The three swiftly headed towards him. Endrick had been standing before Gustav's strapped figure the entire time trying to free him. It had made it impossible for him to assist the others at the time. He had also fallen victim to Sir Zil's device, and only just resumed trying to free Gustav. Vera jumped onto Gustav while he was still strapped, interrupting Endrick. I miss you, she uttered quietly, her lifeless-looking eyes regaining a bit of focus. All of Zil's research centers have been burnt down. No samples or anything regarding me will ever be successfully acquired, and I got the data from the warp demolator back. Gustav listed out with an expression of gratification. The last 2 days had been spent gathering all that was needed from Sir Zil's labs and research centers before raising them to the ground. Since Gustav wanted To keep rising in rank, he let him take full credit for unraveling Scientist Zill's plans and stopping him. All necessary evidences were provided, and he added to his report that the clone was nowhere to be found. The world was made aware that the attack on Arabia City was the doing of the clone under the orders of Sir Zill. There was no doubt that he would get a promotion since it was a planet-wide save. Gustav acquired the data from the warp demolator which Sir Zill had kept well hidden. He discovered that the reason the clone went after the device and took it was because he wanted to become the real Gustav. With what they had in mind, after the real Gustav was dead, some of his body parts would have been added to the clone who would have taken up Gustav's mantle and started living his life. The clone wanted everything that Gustav had: his mission, his abilities, his friends, and pretty much his whole life. Unfortunately, Vera had turned it into a complete mind slave with her abilities and proceeded to instruct the clone to only listen to Gustav's commands henceforth. Now Gustav was waiting for the information in the warp demolator to be completely transferred and displayed digitally. Afterwards, they would decide on the next course of action. "Vera wants a date with you. What are you gonna do now?" Endrik asked from the side. Sigh. "She probably thinks there is a chance since Angie is currently not in the picture." Gustav couldn't help but let out a sigh. Angie. He called internally as memories of a cute girl with a beautiful smile and 2 horns on her forehead appeared in his mind. "If I was human, I would have thrown up." The system's voice suddenly rang in his head. "What?" Gustav voiced internally. "Cringe." "Fuck you," Gustav stated internally before getting to his feet. "I gave her my word, so I need to keep it. In the meantime, you could assist with looking into that gift item. As for the other items, we will collect them after we get the warp demolator information," Gustav instructed. "Will do, have fun." "You need it," Endrik said to Gustav, who was already walking away. "Fun? I don't think I recall what that word is supposed to mean. You will, just make sure you use protection." "What?" Darkness stretched endlessly in all directions, engulfing the surroundings in an impenetrable veil, leaving the dimension shrouded in mysteries. Time held no dominion within this dark dimension, where the passage of eons was but a fleeting whisper in the cosmic winds. Past, present, and future converged in an eternal moment, suspended in the timeless embrace of the rulers. Spatial limitations held no sway in this dimension as well. It seemed to be in existence and non-existent at the same time. Within this boundless expanse, a being, its face shrouded in dark fog and essence sheathing the cosmic emptiness with an authority that resonated through the fabric of existence, sat before multiple dark threads that seemed to connect unknown entities. Chapter 14-19 Do you love her? Within the boundless expanse, a being, its face shrouded in dark fog and essence sheathing the cosmic emptiness with an authority that resonated through the fabric of existence, sat before multiple dark threads that seemed to connect unknown entities. Each thread was longer than the ring surrounding any planetary structure in existence. These threads formed shadows of an event that unearthed like a life playback. Time from all ages, the past, present, and future, seemed to converge into one. A figure materialized into existence, floating in place before the cosmic being that governed the unknown dimension. A mirror. A low tremble resonated across the dimension as the massive cosmic being called out. "My lord!" The newly arrived figure, who had tendrils of darkness coiled around its form in a long robe that bore sentient consciousness, bowed reverentially. "State your business," the cosmic being commanded. "Yes. Your earthly offspring." Amir hesitantly spoke but came to a brief pause. "Out with it." The cosmic being seemed to grow impatient with every passing second. "His vessel completed the transition process." Amir completed his initial sentence. Silence ensued between both beings for a few seconds. It was news that the cosmic being had been waiting to receive, but now he couldn't help but feel something was amiss. "Why were you hesitant to inform me of this?" the cosmic being inquired. "That is because of what he has become," Amir responded, while a dark tendril extended from his figure and made contact with one of the massive threads. Dark fog spread out, forming a vivid depiction of a person while the cosmic being watched. Earth. A level 200 mutated beast egg, roots from the Periscus tree in City Vit, and the heart of a kilo-ranked mixed blood. Within a restaurant in the middle of an unknown city, two familiar figures sat across one another. These three are the only items we are having difficulty acquiring, the figure who spoke earlier added. It almost sounds like you guys are about to perform some ritual or something. The other male from across the table, who had a mask covering his face, spoke with a slight chuckle. I mean, they're not the odd items on the list. The youngster with curly black hair coughed twice with a slightly bashful look. I don't even want to ask. I'll get the items you need as soon as I can. Shouldn't be much trouble. The masked man pulled his jacket hems together and began buttoning. How about the heart of a kilo-ranked mixed blood? Wouldn't that be? The youngster whispered with a look of concern. Not really. So long as you know where to look, I could acquire more than a couple of those. The masked man got to his feet at that point. What about your charges? The youngster inquired. I would never charge a brother of his. One couldn't see the face of the masked man, but from his eyes, it seemed like he was smiling. Consider this service to be on the house, he added while turning around to leave. That went surprisingly well, Endrick muttered while watching the masked man leave. By the time he got to the entrance, the masked man's shadow turned red and he dissolved into it, completely vanishing from the place. Endrick stood to his feet at that moment as well. It was time to leave. Blink within another restaurant in Plankton City. The walls were adorned with enthralling holographic displays of vibrant colors. Two figures sat at a table whose surface reflected the intricate lighting in the surroundings. Unlike the other restaurant, only the two figures were within the restaurant, and they were opposing genders. It looked like the entire place was booked for the rest of the day, as no visitors were allowed access. Why can't you use your real face? No one is watching, Vera nagged with a low tone. Before her was a man in a burgundy suit with dark hair, an ashen white face, and very red lips. One could tell that he was a man, but he also looked pretty like a woman. I am not risking revealing my identity. If anyone sees my face, even by mistake, I will have to end their life, Gustav replied while reaching out to grab a wine cup. You look like a transgender, Vera stated with a tone of dissatisfaction. Drop it, Vera. Gustav shot her a distasteful glare. Vera decided to keep quiet at that point and face the meal before her. Finally a little peace, Gustav sighed internally in relief. Your little girlfriend sure has gotten very rich since the last time you were on Earth, the system voiced in his head, referencing Vera's ability to privately book the most expensive restaurant in the city for the rest of the day. Yeah. I wonder what happened in my absence. But I could have done this too, when I was still rich, Gustav responded internally. Are you forever going to cry about your bank account getting restricted by the world government and disabled? The system began laughing hysterically. I had hundreds of millions. TCH, Gustav wished he could pull the system by the ear at that moment, as it couldn't understand the feelings of a human that had lost everything they had built. I will get it back in the future. For now, well, being broke isn't so bad. Gustav decided not to sweat it. How long will you be around? Vera inquired from the other end. Until I get all the items I require, Gustav replied before gulping down a tasty piece of meat. This is nice. It's been a while since I last properly enjoyed an Earth meal. Gustav couldn't help but recall all the months he had spent in outer space and on other planets. Boss Danzo meals are still 100% better. A hint of nostalgia hit Gustav. What items are you talking about? Do you need help? Vera inquired with a look of concern. Don't worry, it is being taken care of. I only need to head to Angie's for the last one. The moment Gustav mentioned Angie, Vera's face dropped. I have a confession to make, she mumbled. Gustav had a slightly confused look on his face. When I learned that Angie got consumed, I didn't feel bad, she uttered before taking a brief pause. Gustav leaned back against his seat to listen attentively and see where she was going with her confession. Sure, I sympathized with you and everyone else, but I didn't feel bad. If anything, A part of me felt glad that she was finally gone, Vera revealed without an ounce of remorse or guilt on her face. Does that make me a bad person? She raised her face to look up at Gustav. The concept of good and bad is chalked up to personal view. To me, it isn't necessarily bad, but to others, that might not be the case. Gustav reached out to take a glass. He slowly gulped down the contents, leaving Vera to dwell on his words for a bit. But why did you feel relieved? Gustav inquired despite already having an idea of the answer. Because I want you for myself, Vera blurted without hesitating. Predictable, the system voiced inwardly. Shush, Gustav hushed it, and went back to focusing on Vera. Do you know that the reason why I am gathering the items I talked about is to get her back? Gustav inquired while rubbing his temples. Oh, well, there's nothing I can do about that. Although a part of me wishes for things to stay like this, a part of me also understands that you're affected by her absence. Vera forced a smile while speaking. Indeed I am. Gustav nodded slightly. What if I asked you not to? Would you not go looking for her? Vera voiced with a look of anticipation. No, I would go looking for her even if she was trapped in hell, Gustav replied while getting to his feet. It's time to go, he decided. However, before Gustav could leave the table, Vera placed her hand on his, causing him to stop in place. Do you love her? Vera questioned. A figure appeared in the middle of a neighborhood close to the edge of Plankton City. The figure had a reminiscent look as they scrutinized the environment, recalling its past look. Residential buildings lined up across the surroundings ranging from 20 to 40 stories. Compared to the past when they used to be mostly around 7 to 15 stories, this was an upgrade. The figure walked past a bunch of stores and even a few familiar people in the surroundings. It is much busier now. A smile hung on his face as he set his sights in a particular direction. It was a building close to the end of the street that measured around 21 stories in height. Staircases could be spotted around the sides, but no one seemed to be making use of them. With a single fluid motion, the figure arrived at the top of the building. Whoosh. Chapter 14:20 Heartbreaking infiltration. With a single fluid motion, the figure arrived at the top of the building. Whoosh. He kept scrutinizing the environment, and despite his striking appearance, no one seemed to notice his presence. This was because Gustav was capable of hiding his presence from anyone weaker than he was. The people within this neighborhood fell into that category. Do you think it would be better to go in and grab what is needed without anyone ever realizing I was there, or should I directly ask her parents? Mr. and Mrs. Villandrobadia? Gustav questioned internally. I do not think they will be willing to welcome you into their home, but you already knew that, didn't you? The system voiced. The system's statement made Gustav take a trip down memory lane. Underscore 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 underscore. You promise to protect her, you promise. Mrs. Villandrobadia broke down in tears while falling to her knees before Gustav. Not only did you not keep your promise, you are suspected of being the one responsible for what happened. Which means you are to blame for her disappearance, Mr. Villandrobadia stated with a tone of fury while Gustav just stood in the passageway with a look of remorse. I saw you as a son, but that was my mistake. Mrs. Villandrobadia kept tearing up uncontrollably. Leave here now or I am calling the MBO. The only reason why I haven't buried my hand in your face is because of the love Angie has for you, he added. Gustav could see Phil in the background looking down with a crestfallen expression. He couldn't even look Gustav in the eyes. I will get her back, Gustav stated before turning around. Do not give us false hope, Mrs. Villandrobadia yelled. Gustav paused his footsteps before turning slightly. I will not rest until I get her back. Underscore 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 underscore. His mind returned to the present, and he turned around while letting out a sigh. Could he blame them? Although everyone had it wrong with the allegations of him destroying planet Osius, he couldn't entirely say he had nothing to do with it. A part of Gustav blamed himself because he knew the Death Angels weren't there for Falco alone, they were also there for him. He also knew that Angie's parents wouldn't know what to believe since the whole universe painted him as a culprit. One could only imagine how any good parent would feel about losing their child. It was easy to get overwhelmed with emotions, causing them to look at the situation from a place of sentimentality, rather than logic. I guess it would be best for everyone to remain oblivious of my presence, Gustav decided and took a step forward. The world before him came to a stop as he sped towards the ledge of the building and ran across its side till he reached the level of the 7th floor. Flash like the wind, he infiltrated the corridor of the 7th floor and made his way towards an apartment close to the end. Atomic manipulation has been activated, the system's notification popped up as Gustav snapped his fingers. A burst of milky-colored light enshrouded his entire figure, causing him to turn a bit translucent. Gustav took a step forward and walked through the door of the apartment, while it was still locked. He was now in Angie's family apartment, and the tranquil silence made it seem like no one was home. However, Gustav knew better. He turned towards the small pathway that led to the rooms and kept walking till he reached the front of the second. Sniff, sniff, the room door was slightly ajar, and one could hear muffled weeping coming from within. Gustav stood in place briefly without going in. He was already invading privacy and didn't want to go further until the person within stepped out. Sniff, sniff, dash. I should have stopped you. Dash. I regret ever letting you join the MBO. Dash. I regret ever letting you go out there to participate in ISOP. Dash. I regret ever letting you be friends with Gustav. Dash. Wah, sniff, sniff. Dash. Angie, it's all my fault. Dash. I am a bad mother. Even as a sentient being void of emotions, I have to admit that this is difficult to witness. The system voiced in Gustav's head. Yeah. Gustav stood in place with a conflicted look. His face displayed a myriad of emotions ranging from pain to remorse as he clenched his fist. He wished with every fiber of his existence that he could comfort Angie's mother, but he was very much aware that revealing his presence would only make things worse. His perception gave him a very vivid depiction of what was ongoing in the room, so he was still invading her privacy even though he had refused to go into the room until she stepped out. Minutes later, Angie's mother stepped out while wiping her face with a piece of clothing. Her eyes were very red and swollen. The bags underneath them and dark circles around them showed clear signs of insomnia amongst other things. Gustav was very troubled upon seeing how she looked, but he had to move out of the way to prevent collision. With the addition of the 6 months spent participating in ISOP, Angie's parents hadn't seen their daughter in 16 months, and yet they were still very much affected by her absence. This was a testament to how much they loved their daughter. Gustav knew well that his birth parents wouldn't even be bothered had this been his situation. He stepped into Angie's room and scrutinized the surroundings. He stared at her wall stickers and posters of nature and fantasy. The bed was clean and well arranged. Her study desk stood by the side with a holographic computer on it. The room was super tidy. He walked towards the desk and grabbed the small holograph frame close to the edge. It displayed Angie and her family. Gustav touched a button on the back by mistake, and the display changed to Angie and a much younger version of himself. This was over 3 years ago. I didn't think she would add it to a frame. Gustav had a look of astonishment. In the picture, there were some trees in the vicinity, and he was looking away when she took a selfie. He was aware at the time but wasn't bothered. He spotted a few tears on her desk and knew that her mother had been weeping while holding onto the frame. A deep frown appeared on Gustav's face. I have to speed up the process of getting Angie back. After the thought appeared in their mind, Gustav pulled a drawer open and grabbed one of Angie's hairbrushes. Flyish like the wind, his figure vanished from the vicinity, causing a low whooshing sound to ring out. Mrs. Villandrobadia was alerted by the sound of the wind but couldn't see anyone around because Gustav was long gone. However, she spotted a droplet of blood in the passageway which struck her as odd. Did I cut myself anywhere? Back at E.'s apartment, all three of them except Cersei were gathered in his living room. Did you get it? Endrik turned to Gustav. Yeah, Gustav responded while taking out the hairbrush. How about you, E? He turned to face Emma. I was able to persuade him. E replied while taking out a small piece of shirt. Good, now we just need an item that bears the presence of that other dimension. Endrik voiced with a nod. And what about the other items besides that? Gustav inquired. Red Shadow agreed to get them for us. Endrik replied while sitting on the other end. I take it your meeting with him went well? Gustav voiced with a tone of relief. Endrik raised his right thumb in response. He is very easygoing. Last issue, how do we find an item that has a presence from there? Endrik questioned with a look of curiosity. That's not difficult. You will do it, Gustav responded while throwing a glance at E. How do I do that? E inquired with doubt in his voice. You head to the underground research center where the Death Angel is being held, cut a piece of it and bring it back here. Pretty simple, right? Gustav explained while crossing his legs. Right, except for the part where you forgot to mention that Jack Sherwin, the strongest mixed blood in existence, is currently guarding the research center, which makes it impossible to sneak in to do that. He laughed wryly while speaking. He sounded like Gustav was trying to send him to his death. Who said you were going to sneak in? Gustav tilted his head slightly while smirking. Huh! You will walk right in through the front door, Officer Emmanuel Elopos, Gustav added. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to visit. He raised his hands in defeat. I'm sure you will find a way, Gustav replied while getting to his feet. The information that the warp demolator scanner acquired should be fully extracted by now. Gotta go check that out, Gustav added while walking away. Good luck. Endrik tapped E.'s shoulder twice before following after Gustav. These two little fuckers. E sighed. Chapter 14:21 Stagnant Siderous Void. Good luck. Endrik tapped E.'s shoulder twice before following after Gustav. These two little fuckers. E sighed. Gustav's fingertips emitted bluish beams as he drew rectangular lines in midair. A spatial doorway appeared and he stepped in alongside Endrik. They entered a space of Gustav's making where an oddly shaped device was centered. Gustav tapped on a couple of buttons attached to the device, and it shot out rays of light that displayed a particular part of outer space. Within the display, a mixture of gray and white matter that seemed alive engulfed orbital bodies in the distance. Right before their very eyes, Gustav and Endrik could see stars as large as the Milky Way sun, asteroids and every other thing in sight get drawn into the gray and white matter. It cruised through space with its gigantic form and vanished not too long after. The device then went on to make a couple of analyses based on the properties of the gray and white matter. I knew it, Gustav mumbled. Knew what? What are we looking at here? Endrik inquired with a tone of curiosity. Do you see this signature right here? Gustav pointed at one of the displays that had a slash sign. Yeah? That shows that whatever the warp demolator consumes doesn't necessarily get destroyed. Then, what happens to them? It's a spatial sign that interprets that they get transported to an entirely different location from where they were in space. What? That's insane. I know, right? To be able to teleport orbital masses of that size. Incredible. At that point, Gustav began to put two and two together. You're finally getting closer to the truth, the system voiced in his mind. You have always shunned it whenever I mentioned the destruction of planet Humbad. Does this mean their planet just got swallowed up by the warp demolator and transferred elsewhere? You already arrived at the answer, why still ask? Because a lot of details are still missing. The warp demolator appears randomly even though I can read its appearance now. How did the Slarkovs know that their planet was in danger of being swallowed up before it appeared? They must have left before the appearance of the warp demolator, which means They lied about their planet getting destroyed. What is the aim and objective here? I don't get it, Gustav rambled internally while staring at the device before him. That's what the 5-year quest is for. Find Dimension 6 in Planet Humbad and the answers will be waiting for you, the system voiced. That's where the problem lies. The warp demolator scanner has confirmed the spatial transportation, but where they were transported to? Gustav stared at the readings before him. What do all these mean? Endrik pointed at the bottom half of the readings. That is where the warp demolator scanner says they were transported to, Gustav responded. Reappearance determined, stagnant sidereus void number 792. What is a stagnant sidereus void? Endrik questioned, looking clueless. Since there are orbital bodies, planets, stars, asteroids, moons, they can only be transported to some sort of galaxy. The only problem is, this stagnant sidereus void does not exist. Gustav had a conflicted expression after reaching the end of his statement. How is that possible? Surely they can't be transported to somewhere that doesn't exist. Endrik folded his arms while reeling forward in confusion. It could be a pocket dimension, Endrik added. A pocket dimension can't hold so many orbital bodies like that. The laws of gravitational balance and space would not allow it. They would attract to each other, causing a collision that would wipe everything out of existence, the orbital bodies and dimensions included. Gustav explained. What if the stagnant sidereus is just a place that you don't know about? Maybe we just need to ask around, Endrik suggested. I read every marked territory across the universe during our training in the MBO. I took the memories of the space pirate who has experienced journeying across galaxies for decades. During our time out of Earth, I further broadened my knowledge and I gained enlightenment about unsourced locations when my cosmic superiority forced me into a meeting with the other cosmic superior beings. Knowledge beyond alphas that are older than 1,000 years old. Trust me when I say, I've never heard of stagnant sidereus. Gustav iterated with such pompousness that Endrik fell speechless. Well, you are the outworldly after all, Endrik voiced with a casual shrug. So what else have we not considered? He proceeded to inquire. */ this sign. Gustav pointed at a very odd sign close to the bottom area of the readings. I know what this one means. Premonition, Endrik stated. Yeah, but how is it related to all this? Gustav wondered out loud. Maybe the 5 premonitions. No, it is something else. Endrik swiftly corrected himself. Yeah, it is something else. Gustav shot a thoughtful gaze at the readings before coming to a decision. Let's be ready for when next the warp demolator appears. Gustav sauntered towards the right. Why? What are you planning? Endrik questioned, but soon his eyes widened in realization. Don't tell me. The MBO tower. I don't understand this request of yours, Officer E. Commander Xanatus voiced with a look of confusion. The Death Angel that was captured, the research center is doing all they can to crack down on it and gather more information about the other side, right? Threw out this question. Yes, indeed that is true. Commander Xanatus replied. I am saying I can help. Remember, I was one of the few who had a personal encounter with them. Voiced with a convincing tone. Did you suddenly figure something out? Commander Xanatus raised an eyebrow in intrigue. Yes, once I see it again in person. Sat up and took note of Commander Xanatus' pondering expression. You know that unauthorized personnel are not allowed to head there, right? I do. It is a top-secret location even amongst MBO officers. I know. A brief silence ensued between them as Commander Xanatus peered into E.'s eyes with suspicion. Tell me the true reason you want to head there, Commander Xanatus demanded. There is no. It's for him, isn't it? A smile suddenly appeared on Commander Xanatus' face. How did he? He couldn't have figured it out, right? Gulped down saliva while maintaining eye contact with Commander Xanatus in a bid to decrease suspicion. I don't know what you're. Before he could complete his sentence, Commander Xanatus cut him off. It's okay. I am an ally. I've always been. Did Gustav never tell you that we go way back? Commander Xanatus burst into a full-blown smile. He sat in place with a stunned look, unable to decide on what to say to deter the high-ranked officer before him. Commander Xanatus proceeded to pull out an image of him and Gustav receiving awards together, and a few other holographic pictures of the meeting. Be careful though, if you had gone to another officer, things could have gone really bad, he voiced. Yeah. He rubbed his head while letting out a sigh of relief. You're not very good at coming up with lies. You should learn from Gustav, Commander Xanatus pointed out. I'm not sure I want to learn that. He lightly stroked his afro with a bashful look. You should. Gustav is a master in the art of deceit. Commander Xanatus was chuckling. That is true. Hold on. Does this mean that you have been deceiving everyone like you were on their side with the allegations against Gustav all this time? He inquired. Of course. I could never truly be on their side. I owe that kid my life. Commander Xanatus bore a reminiscent look. I am secretly working behind the scenes to clear his name, but I will not bore you with the details. We all have our parts to play in this. It'll help you get into the Underground Research Center, Commander Xanatus added while reaching out to shake Thank you? Received the handshake with immense gratitude. Within the fiery depths of an active volcano, where molten lava bubbled and roiled with relentless fury, a figure sat amid red bubbling liquid. The air crackled with the searing heat of the molten rock, sending waves of intense heat radiating through the cavernous chamber. The figure exuded an aura of raw power, their presence commanding reverence that prevented the surroundings from having any effect on him. Molten lava flowed around him like a river of liquid fire. The figure got repeatedly bathed by the fiery liquid, and yet his skin radiated with smoothness. His eyes were closed, almost like he was meditating in the perilous environment. Dark smoke pervaded the vicinity, which didn't bother him in the slightest. After what seemed like ages, he suddenly opened his eyes. I told you, I don't want to be bothered until he returns. Chapter 14:22. Completing a monthly quest after what seemed like ages, he suddenly opened his eyes. I told you, I don't want to be bothered until he returns. He has returned. Another masculine voice traveled across the volcanic domain as a figure descended from the opening above. Eldris? The figure voiced a tone of disbelief after identifying the newly arrived person. Hello, Rhea. It's been too long. Eldris' silver hair fluttered enchantingly as he floated before Rhea. Both of them emitted an undaunting and overbearing presence that made the surroundings chime in reverence. Did I just hear you say he has returned? Rhea questioned with intrigue. Has my rival truly returned? He stood to his feet immediately. Eldris, whose eyes were shut as usual, suddenly opened them. His pupils gathered all the color in the universe, sparkling with such beauty that defied human comprehension. Yes, Gustav has returned, he stated with a smile. Then, does this mean it is time to get Engie and Falco back? Anticipation began to build within Rhea as he questioned. Why don't we go ask him ourselves? Eldris began floating upwards. Rhea grinned excitedly before crouching and leaping upwards. Thwoosh, both their figures blasted off into the sky and soon vanished from sight. Good thing daily tasks stop. I can't find myself doing stupid things like this all the time. Gustav stood at the top of a skyscraper with a slightly irritated look. Maybe I should bring them back, the system teased. Maybe I should bend you over and spank you when you're in physical form, Gustav stated. That is inappropriate. It is what you deserve. Silence. Gustav decided to ignore the system and stared at the notification before him. Monthly quest: infiltrate the MBO tower and sabotage the sign. Squinting eyes face status uncompleted. Squinting eyes face time elapsed 3 weeks. What even is the point of this? Gustav peered into the distance where the MBO tower was located. The glowing MBO sign could be spotted vividly from his angle. It was a beacon of power and authority, and now the system wanted him to mess with it. Maybe to teach you how to have fun a little. The system chimed in. Fun is the last thing I need right now. Angie and Falco are still out there. Who knows what they are currently going through? Gustav's face darkened as he recalled Angie's mother's tears. Exactly why you need it. You've been on this for a year. At least celebrate the fact that you're getting closer. The system voiced once more. TCH, I'm only doing this because I have a bit of time on my hands since I'm waiting for Endrick and ES return. If not, I wouldn't even give this the thought of the day. I don't care about failing. Gustav blurted with a disinterested look. Yeah? Just do it already. One could almost sense the system rolling its pretty eyes at Gustav. Gustav sauntered forward and leapt off the ledge of the skyscraper. MBO Tower, holographic monitors flickered to life throughout a control room, displaying a dizzying array of data and visuals. Charts, graphs, and schematics floated in midair, updating in real time as officers monitored the status of various systems and operations. At the heart of the control room stood the central command station, a massive console adorned with an array of buttons, switches, and holographic displays that served as the nerve center of the operation. Officers manned the station with unwavering focus, their eyes glued to the screens as they monitored the status of critical systems and operations. Officer Chin, Gradier Howe has requested that the footage documentation of Case 1729P be sent to his office. An officer in an MBO outfit approached from the entrance. Not Gradier Howe again. The officer before the largest holographic screen lamented. All right, no problem. Tell him it will be sent by the end of today. Officer Chin responded while moving towards another corner of the control room. About 26 different MBO officers were working in the control room, but it seemed like Officer Chin was the leader there. He began to give out some set of instructions while also tapping on some controls himself. He suddenly sensed a presence behind him and turned around. I already told you, it will be sent by the end of the day. Actually, Commander Zanatus asked for you. The young officer who initially came in reported. Oh? Commander Zanatus? Officer Chen's face showed that he was wondering why Commander Zanatus would request his presence. All right. Officer Chen understood that requests from high-ranked MBO officers took priority. He walked out with the officer after rushing out instructions to some officers on what to do while asking a few to hold on till returned. About a minute later, Officer Chen returned. Now, where were we? He questioned while moving towards the largest control panel area. Dash. Can you see that? Dash. What the fuck? Haha, the MBO tower has a different sign. Dash. Milfbusters organization? Dash. This is hilarious, ha ha ha. Dash. What is up with that sign? Dash. You. Mateo, close your eyes. The entirety of Plankton City was in uproar at the moment as everyone stared at the sign on the MBO tower. Since the letters were so bold and glowing, every person in the city could read them clearly. Many were completely astonished, while some found it hilarious, and others, disgusting. The MBO tower was getting a bunch of calls from all across the city at the moment, and even many people had taken photographs to post on the internet. The MBO became a laughingstock for the netizens as even news and media outlets decided to pass it across even further. What do you think you're doing, Officer Chen? A high-ranking MBO officer approached the control room and spotted Officer Chen just standing in place. What is? Officer Chen shook his head repeatedly while looking around and wondering why he was standing in the middle of the corridor. What is this immature and incredibly foolish stunt you just pulled? The officer yelled in annoyance. Huh? What are you talking about, Sir Dexter? Officer Chen couldn't even remember how he got to the corridor. He only recalled coming to and finding himself there. This is what I am talking about, you idiot! The high-ranking officer pulled out a holographic tablet that was currently displaying pictures of the MBO tower on the internet. Officer Chen's eyes widened in disbelief. As he stared at the pictures, his jaw nearly dropped to the floor. What the hell? Monthly quest: infiltrate the MBO tower and sabotage the sign. Status: successful. rewards, +1, 000, 000 EXP +1 level up all skills and abilities level up advancement of Crimson Matter Bloodline to grade +1 card that fully unlocks ability of host choice for 10 minutes. The rewards are not bad, but I'm never doing anything like this again. Gustav stood atop a skyscraper in the form of Officer Chen. His body slowly morphed back to his original look, and he proceeded to take his MBO uniform off. Tell me you don't get a little kick from seeing that sign and the MBO getting bashed all across the world. I don't. Gustav's face remained straight. Don't lie. The system cajoled. Pfft, alright, it's a little funny. Gustav chuckled a little before going back to his usual poker face. The system kept teasing him internally, but he decided to ignore it. Status window. Gustav muttered. Host attributes, name, Gustav Crimson level, 199 class, parallel being EXP, 39, 524, 090/270, 000, 000 HP, 310, 000/310, 000 energy, 179, 000/180, 000, attributes, strength, 712 perception, 724 mental fortitude, 719 agility, 714 speed, 720 bravery, 717 intelligence, 716 charm, 401 defense, 721 vitality, 723 endurance, 713 attributes points, 101. Underscore 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 underscore. I reached level 199. I wonder if there will be any surprises when I reach 200. Gustav wondered out loud. Want me to tell you? The system inquired internally. You've been nice lately. I'm starting to think you're an imposter. Gustav replied to the system. Alright, I won't tell you then. Tell me. No, you lost your chance. You'd better spill. Make me. I will. You couldn't even make Angie spill. Gustav remained silent for a few seconds before responding. Now that's the mean bitches system I remember. Gustav arrived back at E.'s apartment but sensed a presence within. Upon better perception, he sensed it wasn't one but two presences. And from what he could sense, they were very powerful. Gustav hid his presence and stepped into the apartment without so much as making a sound. The two presences in the apartment were now clearly visible to him. His eyes widened slightly after identifying them. Eldris? Ria? Gustav called out with a tone of surprise. Gustav? Rival? Both figures voiced simultaneously. How did he get to our front without us noticing? They both came to the realization with expressions of bewilderment. To them it seemed like Gustav had just appeared in place. Meanwhile, he walked in but didn't reveal his presence until he identified them. Rival! Ria yelled once more and lunged forward in joy. Chapter 1423 Gustav Crimson is on Earth. Rival! Ria yelled once more and lunged forward in joy. Gustav raised his right hand to block Ria's face with a wry smile. Calm your excitement. Ildris chuckled from behind as he stood to his feet. Don't be so harsh. He missed you, he stated. Everyone did, Ildris added with a reminiscent look. How did you guys know I was on Earth? Gustav questioned with a slightly suspicious tone. Why did you think he would keep it from us? Ildris threw out the question, causing Gustav to shake his head slightly. It was supposed to be a quick pop in and out of Earth. And yet so many unexpected things happened. Gustav let out a small sigh. So that was you facing the clone? I suspected. Ildris smiled while extending a fist. What clone? Ria scratched his head cluelessly. Yeah, it was me, Gustav replied while bumping Ildris' fist softly. That was just one out of the many things I faced since I arrived here. I still had to stop a mad scientist from getting rid of everyone's bloodline, Fight Jack and mess with that MBO sign. Gustav couldn't believe just how crazy the last 2 weeks had gone. You fought Jack Sherwin? You were the one who messed with that MBO sign? Ildris and Rhea voiced simultaneously in disbelief. Not by choice, but yeah. Also, in a different timeline. Gustav took a seat and slumped back against the sofa. Who won? Rhea kicked his feet up excitedly while inquiring. Who do you think? Gustav voiced in response. Well, seeing as you are here now. Ildris couldn't even complete his sentence because he knew that would technically be saying Gustav was the most powerful on Earth. He knew it was possible in due time but couldn't fathom Gustav already reaching that level at 21 years old. Rival! You won! Rhea's eyes widened in astonishment. No. It was barely a stalemate. I probably would be dead by now if he used full strength from the start. Gustav bluntly pointed out. Oh. Both Ildris and Rhea voiced together. Anyways, at least I got to gauge his strength and understand what level I need to acquire before I can be on equal footing with him. Gustav strangely seemed glad about the encounter. The fact that you can even contend with him in the slightest is commendable. Ildris patted Gustav's shoulder twice. I only have a year more to not just be able to contend with him, but reach a higher level of power or I fail the quest, Gustav reminded himself internally. So how did you get away from him? Rhea questioned. I didn't. He had to leave to face that half-white and black unknown entity. Gustav responded. What half-white and black entity? Rhea was extremely dumbfounded. Were you living under a rock? You're a part of the MBO, you should know. Gustav felt that Rhea seemed too uninformed on some of the matters that he should be aware of. Technically, he was living under a volcano. Ildris chimed in from the side, causing Rhea to smile wryly. Gustav was further confused by the revelation. Did you quit the MBO? No, I took a leave, Rhea answered while rotating his right arm. He said he didn't want to be disturbed until you return. Ildris chuckled while revealing. Hey! He didn't have to know that, Rhea yelled bashfully. He didn't stop channeling his bloodline in the active volcano until I informed him of your return, Ildris added while Rhea pouted at the side. He is a lot more powerful now. I can sense it, Gustav voiced in observation. Rhea's eyes widened in excitement. Really? Gustav nodded. From what I can sense, your energy is higher than Ildris. Well, family issues haven't exactly made me active this last year. I also took a leave from the MBO, Ildris revealed. Tell me all about it. Gustav showed a concerned expression. Nah, it's nothing to be bothered about. Ildris waved it off. But I did hear of that being. It is suspected to come from the same place as the Death Angels. Ildris couldn't help but sense an ominous feeling while mentioning it. If I was skeptical about that before, I am 100% certain now. Gustav then mentioned how the black and white entity broke the Death Angel out the last time. But how can it easily travel between worlds? Didn't you mention that the Death Angels were only able to do that because of that premonition thing that happened on planet Ozius? Ildris asked, sounding conflicted. That's the mystery. If I hadn't reversed time, the Death Angel would be truly free by now. Gustav held his chin in bafflement. Wait, you can reverse time now? Rhea's jaw dropped. I can do a lot of things now. Gustav voiced like it wasn't a big deal, but even Ildris was amazed. Damn. Just how powerful are you now? Rhea questioned. Not powerful enough, Gustav replied. You weren't really planning on rescuing Falco and Angie all by yourself, right? Rhea asked while folding his arms. I didn't want to get you guys involved. It would be too dangerous. Gustav shook his head. That's why he informed us behind your back. You need all the help you can get if you intend to infiltrate that other dimension. Ildris pointed out. No. Only I and Endrick will be heading there after we've gathered all the items we need. Gustav immediately refused. You can't stop us from coming with. Falco and Angie are our friends too. Do you know how long I've been waiting to do something about their rescue? Now that the opportunity has presented itself, I won't sit back. Rhea voiced with a fired-up expression. They both stared at the look on Gustav's face, hoping for some type of reaction. After a brief silence, Gustav stood to his feet. No. Gustav Crimson is on Earth. I can feel it. Within an office, situated in an MBO base, a high-ranking female officer roamed the place with a conflicted expression. She had a long, green ponytail while the rest of her hair was sky blue. Her face had cat-like features with whiskers, but overall, her body was humanoid in structure. For how long have you been feeling this way, ma'am? An MBO major questioned from the other end. A little over 2 weeks now, she replied. Could you perhaps be referring to the clone? The 5-foot-tall major with a blue slimy face questioned. No. I am very much aware of the clone. I am talking about the real deal. He is here. She kept prancing about the place with a look of conflict. I don't know, ma'am. The MBO major was clueless. Think, Gohan. Think, what anomaly has occurred during that time frame? She questioned, causing pressure to descend upon the surroundings. Except for the clone, I can't really think of anything else, ma'am. Gohan shook his head. I said think! She yelled with a horrifying tone, causing Gohan to tremble in place. I think there's... Gohan kept stuttering in uncertainty. Oh, just spit it out, she stated with a tone of annoyance. I just recall that there was a mention of Jack's encounter with the person who faced the clone. He said in another timeline the Earth was in trouble because of the appearance of that black and white entity. Time was rewound, but he remembered that it happened because of his strength. Gohan tooted on. He left the clone in the hands of the person who took it on and returned to the research facility. Ma'am Reina, he said, the person informed him. Gohan paused to see if she was starting to see the pattern. That person who faced the clone, did we ever figure out his identity? General Reina questioned rhetorically. Gohan shook his head in response. But a person powerful enough to reverse time on a scale where even Jack would be affected must at least be an alpha ranked, or maybe even higher. The number of mixed bloods on that level of power is around 200 in the entire populace of billions. We have records for them and know the names of each and every one of them. None of them has this ability. When Gohan got to this point, General Reina's eyes widened. Since this isn't a recorded alpha, it means that this person must have become an alpha after the last one was recorded, which was years ago. If they were on Earth when it happened or weren't in hiding, then it would be a part of the public records, but because they were in hiding. General Reina came to a pause as a sense of realization hit her. The person who faced the clone was the real Gustav in disguise, Gohan stated with a tone of certainty. Now we just need proof. General Reina stopped prancing at this moment. Where would someone like Gustav Crimson hide out? You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.